This is the Troll Patrol. Live with Justin FREAKIN.
Welcome back to day 5 of the impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump. The Senate has just come back from recess. We are currently awaiting the Senate Majority Leader, who should be speaking shortly, to tell us how this trial is actually going to proceed. C-SPAN is reporting that Republicans have made an offer to, or the Trump lawyers have made an offer to Democrats that they will allow for the reading of the CNN article about Kevin McCarthy's phone call with Trump into the record in exchange for Democrats dropping their request for witnesses and then proceeding to closing arguments and a vote today. So we will see if the Democrats accept. I don't think it. Remember,
you saw the majority leader, Chuck Schumer, stand up. He was sitting in his chair. You had the minority leader, also Mitch McConnell, in the chamber. So we suspect that they will resume this Senate impeachment trial any minute and announce what happens next with witnesses. I just want to share Burgess Everett of Politico, his reporting on what happened this morning. And he says that this witness vote totally blinded Senate Dems, who held a conference call at 9 a.m. and indicated they didn't think this would come up. House managers decided right before 10 a.m. to call that vote. Let's watch and listen to the majority leader to see what happens next.
So as I said earlier, I thought that it would be in the Dems' best interest if they let the Republicans call their hundreds of witnesses. Apparently, Republicans have said, or Trump's lawyers have said, they have 300. Hold on, let me find that exact number here. 301 witnesses so far that they would like to call. Still waiting to get word on exactly how we are proceeding with the rest of the day. So C-SPAN reporting. Yeah, you're a mod. I don't know when I did it. You have proven yourself worthy, and I would like you on the team. You have the power to hand out some timeouts. Apparently, I get timed out anytime I go into any other fucking streamer's chat. I got timed out last night for telling someone I wanted to cuddle with them. I'm gonna quit going to other people's streams. Shit. I was told it was an inappropriate time. They were having some kind of discussion about Nazis. Just popped in and started talking about how I wanted to cuddle people. So any minute now, we should be hearing from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on what exactly is going to happen. It appears that Democrats may just read the CNN article into the record and move on. I don't think that would be a wise move on their part. I do not believe they should accept the Republican offer to just read the CNN article and then move on. Senate Republicans are wanting to get this over with today. They want the vote to happen as quickly as possible. I trust you. I know you will do a fantastic job. I just want to give the regulars power to kick out people that are being annoying. We had the kid in here the other day. I don't know if you were in here for that. I think you were, though. That's probably the day I modded you. I feel much better now that I have my breakfast beverage. I overslept earlier and was rushing to get on the air with the proceedings. So now that I have my vanilla caramel black tea, I'm feeling a lot better. It's about time to get high, too. We should hear from Chuck Schumer any moment now. When I bought this, I didn't realize it wasn't the bendy kind. I like the bendy kind. Fuck you, gigantic Bic. I'll go back to my little Bic. So if you were just joining us, wild proceedings this morning. We're flying by the seat of our pants. We don't know what's going to happen. The Senate doesn't know what's going to happen. Democrats caught off guard. We're not aware that the House was going to request witnesses. Apparently the House, on a conference call this morning, said that they weren't. Pulled an audible at the last fucking minute. So here we go. We're finally going to find out what's happening. We've kind of been in the dark for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours now.
Majority Leader, without objection, so ordered. Mr. Vanderveen? No. Mr. Castor, I'm sorry.
Oh, we've got Castor back. Yay.
Senators,
Glasses are all fucked up.
Donald John Trump, by
I think he just said his glasses were all fucked up.
stipulate that if Representative Herrera Butler were to testify under oath as part of these proceedings, her testimony would be consistent with the statement she issued on February 12, 2021, and the former president's counsel is agreeable to the admission of that public statement into evidence at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Castor.
So what they're saying is they're just going to let the Democrats read the CNN article. Let's find out their response.
Managers are prepared to enter into the agreement. I will now read the statement.
No! You should have called her.
Congresswoman
Fuck.
Jamie Herrera Butler, February 12, 2021. In my
They fucked
January
up.
12th statement in support of the article of impeachment, I referenced a conversation House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy relayed to me that he'd had with President Trump while the January 6th attack was ongoing. Here are the details. When McCarthy finally reached the president on January 6th and asked him to publicly and forcefully call off the riot, the president initially repeated the falsehood that it was Antifa that had breached the Capitol. McCarthy refuted that and told the president...
So it looks like we are going to be proceeding to a vote on conviction today. Mitch McConnell signaled this morning he will vote to acquit.
Kevin, I guess
Almost certainly, Donald Trump is going to be acquitted
than
today.
you are. Since I publicly announced my decision to vote for impeachment, I have shared these details in countless conversations with constituents and colleagues and multiple times through the media and other public forums. I told it to the...
Well, we're going to be proceeding to closing arguments momentarily, it would seem.
County Republican executive
I'm not
board
sure the
members,
exact time frame,
as
but
well
I
as
think
other
they
constituents
each
who
get
asked me to
an
explain my vote.
hour.
I
It
shared
might be
with
2 hours.
Thousands of residents on my telephone town hall on February 8th.
I want to say it's 2 hours
I
split,
now
but it could be
move that
2
the
hours
Senate
each.
Admit the statement into evidence.
Objection, and without objection, the statement will be admitted into evidence. And does either party wish to make any further motions related to witnesses or documents at this time?
So it looks like this will conclude the witness portion of the trial.
Mr. President, the President's counsel have no further motions.
Discussion.
So it looks like closing arguments are
No
imminent.
further motions either.
Excuse me, then the chair would note that neither party wishes to make further motions under Section 6 of Senate Resolution 47. Therefore, the next question is on admission of the evidence submitted by both parties pursuant to Section 8 of the resolution.
So let's see if you're right and the Republicans throw some objection, or the Trump defense throws some
Now, as we
objection.
move to another matter, I'm advised that the House managers have no objection to the admission of evidence proposed to be admitted by the former President's counsel under the provisions of Section 8 of Senate Resolution 47, and that the President's counsel have no objections to the evidence proposed to be admitted into evidence by the House managers. Pursuant to Section 8 of the resolution, as agreed to by Leader McConnell and myself a few days ago, both parties have made timely filings of this evidence with the Secretary of the Senate and have provided copies to each other. I therefore ask unanimous consent that the Senate dispense with the provisions of Section 8A of Senate Resolution 47, and that the materials submitted by both parties be admitted into evidence, subject to the provisions of Section 8C of that resolution, which provides that the admission of this evidence does not constitute a concession by either party as to the truth of the matters asserted by the other party, and that each senator shall decide for him or herself the weight to be given such evidence. This request has the approval of both parties and the Republican leader.
Without objection, is so ordered. Okay, then pursuant to the provisions of Senate Resolution 47, the Senate has provided for up to 4 hours of closing arguments. They'll be equally divided between
So
the
two
managers
each.
on the part of the House of Representatives and the counsel for the former president. And pursuant to Rule
So we're looking at a vote on conviction around 5 o'clock Eastern Time.
when sitting on impeachment trials, the argument shall be open and closed on the part of the House of Representatives. So the chair recognizes Mr.
No witnesses. The Democrats agreed to read the statement
presentation on the part
by
of
the
House
witness that they wanted into the record.
Mr. Raskin, under Rule 22,
That was the Republicans' request, that they just read the statement from the CNN article into the record and forego actually
Mr.
calling
President.
witnesses.
Members of the Senate, before I proceed, it was suggested by defense counsel that Donald Trump's conduct during the attack, as described in Congresswoman Butler's statement, is somehow not part of the constitutional offense for which former President Trump has been charged. I want to reject that falsehood and that fallacy immediately.
It's a weird argument to make.
Violence was underway at the Capitol. President Trump took actions that further incited the insurgents to be more inflamed and to take even more extreme, selective, and focused action against Vice President Mike
That's why I read one of the accounts by the Republicans was like, my God, he's
Former
stoking
President Trump
them.
Also, as described by Congresswoman Butler's notes, refused requests to publicly, immediately, and forcibly call off the riots. And when he was told that the insurgents inside the Capitol were Trump supporters, the president said, quote, well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are. Think about that for a second. This uncontradicted statement that has just been stipulated as part of the evidentiary record. The president said, well, Kevin, I guess these people, meaning the mobsters, the insurrectionists, are more upset about the election than you are. That conduct is obviously part and parcel of the constitutional offense that he was impeached for, namely incitement to insurrection. That is continuing incitement to the insurrection. The conduct described not only perpetuated his continuing offense, but also provides to us here today
denying requests for the National Guard. I wish they had focused more on leading up, the events leading up to it.
When my opposing counsel says that you should ignore the president's actions after the insurrection began, that is plainly wrong. And it, of course, reflects the fact that they have no defense.
It's clear that the Trump team was wanting to focus solely on the speech that morning, calling it constitutional, and nothing else. Nothing else could be submitted into the record.
Senators, think about it for a second.
I'm not stoned enough for this.
Say you light a fire, and you're charged with arson. And the defense counsel says, everything that I did after the fire started is irrelevant. And the court would reject
Now, the Democrats wrapped up with about 5 hours left in their actual presentation.
Committed the crime. If you
The Republicans, Trump defense, wrapped up with fucking 13 and something hours left.
A court will infer that.
What do you guys think? Do you think that they will both use all 2 hours that they have? Are we even going to be here until 5?
That it was all an accident. It was an all accident.
I wouldn't doubt that the
But if on the other hand,
Trump defense team walks up, says one or two sentences, and sits back down. They know what the vote's going to be. They want to go home.
Gleefully,
I think the Democrats fucked up. They should have stretched this out.
Intended the fire to start, but that once it got started and began to spread, you intended to continue to keep the fire.
Correct.
And that's exactly where we are.
And he knew exactly what he was doing. I wish they'd shown this pattern of behavior going all the way back to 2016.
Is relevant to your culpability. Both to the
He was always going to do this.
Defense, but also directly relevant, directly illuminating to what your purpose was originally. What was your intent?
And it's clear that when he told them to go home, they went home. And they even said, "Oh, Trump told us to go home. Let's go."
What I did after
I don't know how.
is irrelevant.
I don't know what else you need. That seems pretty damning to me.
I mean, come on. Donald Trump's refusal not only to send help, but also.
And there is not a single person who is intellectually honest that could say that there would be a single person at that Capitol that day if it hadn't have been for Trump constantly lying about the results of the election.
Insurrection and his continued incitement once the attack.
There is one person and one person alone responsible for the events that day.
Senators, that was in response to this new evidentiary particle that came in. But in my closing, I want to thank you for your remarkable attention and your seriousness of
Except the 15 that didn't pay attention?
your office. We've offered you overwhelming and irrefutable and certainly unrefuted evidence that former President
Damning.
Trump incited this insurrection against us. To quote the statement Representative Liz Cheney made in January, quote, on January 6, 2021, a violent mob attacked the United States Capitol to obstruct the process of our democracy and stop the counting of presidential electoral votes. This insurrection caused injury, death, and destruction in the most sacred space in our republic. She continued.
It certainly wasn't in the popular zeitgeist. You're
Much
correct.
more will become clear.
Junkies like myself have been aware of the
What we know
proceedings.
now is enough. The President of the United States.
The 2016
summoned this mob,
proceedings were interesting. The
assembled
2004
mob,
proceedings were
lit the flame of
interesting.
this attack.
The
Everything
2000
that
proceedings
was
were
his doing.
interesting.
None of this.
I'm sorry, I guess that would have been the
without
2001,
The
2005.
President could have
2017.
immediately and forcefully intervened to stop the violence. He did not. There has never been a greater betrayal by the President of the United States of his office.
That's what the
and his
Republicans even played.
Constitution. I will
Maxine
vote to
Waters
Mr.
from
President.
2000, where she's like, and
Representative
frankly, I don't care that it's not signed by a senator.
on the evidence and on the Constitution. And the evidence, the video.
That's true. He took illegal avenues. He lied continuously.
Right up till today, right up to 10 minutes.
I absolutely think it should be a crime to use the office of the presidency, any federal office,
that despite
to
the
promote
materials
falsehoods.
and so on,
And we
President
need to do
Trump's
something
lawyers have said almost nothing to contest or
to put some kind of penalty on that.
evidence of former President Trump's conduct that we presented. Much less have they brought
If you're speaking in front of the oath of the office,
to tell us
you should
this
be,
side of the story.
if you're speaking in front of
We
the
sent
oath,
them,
the seal of the office, you
last
should be
week,
under
which
oath.
They rejected out of hand. The former President of the United States refused to come and tell us, and I ask any of you, if you were charged with inciting violent insurrection,
I wish they would have subpoenaed. I really wish they'd play hardball. They did a good job with the
you were falsely
presentation.
accused, would you come and testify? I know I would. I'd be there.
I would have
7
subpoenaed him.
o'clock in
I would
the
have
morning waiting for the
kept the witnesses going. But
I'm sure
apparently,
that's true of 100.
it was the Republican threat of calling 301 witnesses that got them to agree to this reading
Senate was
of
lectured several
the
times yesterday about
statement.
Cancel culture. Well, not even 2 weeks ago, the president's
Correct. He was
most,
leveraging the
supporters
mob's
in the House- I'm
interference
sorry, not the president. The
for
former
further
president's
interference.
Most reliable supporters in the House tried to cancel out Representative Cheney.
This
because of
is
her
cut and
courageous
dry.
patriotic defense of the Republic and the truth and the Constitution. They tried to strip her of her leading role as chair of the
Unfortunately, the Republicans have no guts.
But
Mitch
you know what?
McConnell signaled that he is going to vote to
I hope
acquit
everybody
this
takes a second to
morning.
reflect on this. The conference rejected this plainly
It's a shame.
retaliatory and cowardly attempt to punish her for telling the truth to her constituents and her country and voting for impeachment.
Let that sink
said
in.
you can't
The
say
Republicans punished her for telling the truth. That's what that party
In my
has
mind,
come to.
Liz Cheney is a hero for standing.
I hate Democrats, but goddamn, they're not
resisting
lying sacks of
this
fascist shit
retaliatory
like
cancel
Republicans.
That she was subjected to, but she beat them on a vote of 145 to 61, more than 2-to-1 vote.
And when I say right-wingers are morons, I'm being charitable.
Enlightenment,
I'm
and
being
enemy,
charitable.
Political fanaticism and cowardice, and of course another.
I hope to God they are fucking morons, because
I have observed that wrong is always
The-
growing more wrong until there is
only
no
other option is that they're evil.
and that right.
I don't want to
however
believe that.
opposed, comes right at last. Comes right at last. Think about that. This is
Some
America.
of them are. Some of them are the grifters that take advantage of the stupid people.
America
But
bent-
the average Republican voter is just a
If you make
stupid
yourself a
fuck.
sheep, the wolves will eat you. Don't make yourself a sheep. The wolves will eat you. The America of Thomas Jefferson, who said at another difficult moment, A little patience, and we shall see.
Now, see, he called him Thomas Jefferson. He's on a first-name basis with, he called him Tom Paine.
Recovering their true sight, restore their government to its true.
It's interesting. He's not as personable with Jefferson, though.
The America of Tom Paine, who said, "The mind
He did it. He did it again.
cannot again become dark." Now, we showed you hour after hour of real-time evidence demonstrating every step of Donald Trump's constitutional crime. We showed you how he indoctrinated the mob with his Orwellian propaganda about how the election he lost by more than 7 million votes and 306.
That's the first time in a long time I've heard the word Orwellian uttered by somebody who probably has actually read Orwell.
When he won by the exact same margin in 2016 was actually a landslide victory for him being stolen away by a bipartisan conspiracy.
A bipartisan conspiracy. That members of his own party, people that were loyal to him, were lying in service of the Democrats.
Local, trial, appellate.
That's what you have to believe in order to believe what Donald Trump is saying.
Across the street, and 8 federal judges he himself named to the bench all found no basis in fact or law for his outlandish and deranged inventions and concoctions about the election.
Deranged inventions and concoctions.
Tried to bully state-level officials to commit a fraud on the public.
You know, that's what I would call this show if it wasn't already so aptly named.
Examine the case study of
Deranged
Georgia, where he called
inventions and concoctions.
Raffensperger to find him 11,780 votes. That's all he wanted, he said. 11,780 votes. Don't we all? 11,780 votes. That's all he wanted to nullify Biden's victory and to win the election. Raffensperger ended up with savage death threats against him and his family, telling him he deserved a
Trump currently under criminal investigation for that call now.
Another election official urged Trump to cut it out or people would get hurt and killed. A prescient warning indeed. Raffensperger ended up saying that he and his family supported Donald Trump, gave him money, and now
I don't get it.
Under the bus. We saw what happened in Lansing, Michigan.
Of course he was going to throw you under the bus. That's why I can't believe you supported him and gave him money in the first fucking place.
To kidnap and likely assassinate Governor Whitmer. We saw him trying to get state legislatures to disavow.
What's the meme? I never figured the leopards would eat my face, said the person who voted for the leopards eating my face party.
Wild time. As we celebrate President's Day on Monday, imagine, is there another president in our history who would urge supporters to come to Washington for a wild time? You saw how he embraced the violent extremist elements like the Proud Boys, who were
well, that's an understatement, Creed.
Televised presidential candidate debate to stand back and stand by, which became their official slogan as they converged on Washington.
No one, I assure you, has ever accused you of being a hero.
Of the attack on this building. You saw the assembly of the mob on January 6th, and how beautiful that angry mob must have looked to Donald Trump as he peered down from the lectern.
Oh, he loved it.
With the seal of the President of the United States of America emblazoned on it. That crowd was filled with extremists in tactical gear, armed
neo-Nazis,
and ready to fight, and other brawling MAGA supporters. All of them saying, "Stop the steal right now." And he said he was going to march with them to the Capitol, even though the permit.
I was going to grab the camera and show you socks.
But he said he would march with them.
With the new camera, I'm afraid to touch it.
Comfort that what
also
was legitimate. It was okay. But of course he stayed back as he presumably didn't want to be too close to the action at the Capitol, as the lawyers
still had the plastic.
Not an insurrection, they urged us yesterday. It's an action. He didn't want to be too close to the action when all hell was about to break loose.
I hope you're enjoying seeing my face
as we've discussed,
in more detail.
Requires an inherently
looks like it's been having some issues. I'm going to have to play with the camera a little bit.
And this is what we did.
Thank God Raskin drinks water like a human being.
Factual details about, to use Congresswoman Cheney's
I've yet to see a Republican drink water like a human fucking being.
Assembled the mob, incited it, lit the match.
Says the man drinking out of a coffee cup with a straw.
They yelled out that they'd been invited by the President of the United States. And then, of course, they unleashed unparalleled violence against our overwhelmed and besieged but heroic police officers.
Are you still in here, Brig Creed?
Who you thoughtfully honored yesterday when the officers got in their way as they entered the Capitol at the behest of the President of the United States to stop the steal. Now, I'm convinced most senators must be convinced by this overwhelming and specific detail, because most Americans are.
Truth, that's why I do it.
Still have your doubts.
I watched you play some Dead by Daylight the other night. You sucked. You sucked really bad. I don't think you were paying attention.
The kind that might have been organized by Julian Bond.
You got killed really easily.
Council brought up. Ella Baker,
It was gruesome.
Bob Moses, our late beloved colleague John Lewis, for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Maybe the president really thought this was going to be like the March on Washington organized by Bayard Rustin and Dr. Martin Luther King, who said nonviolence is the
No. Trump always intended it to be exactly what happened.
So let's say you're still flirting with the idea that Donald Trump's conduct was totally appropriate, as he proclaimed right off the bat, and he's the innocent victim of a mass accident or a catastrophe.
No, you were a girl and you got put in some
like a fire
machine
or a
and it
flood,
poked you
as
to
we were
death.
invited to frame it on our opening day by distinguished co-counsel or opposing counsel. And you think maybe we're just looking for somebody to blame for this nightmare and catastrophe that has befallen the Republic. We're just looking for someone to blame. Well, here's the key question then in resolving your doubts, if you're in that category. How did Donald Trump react when he learned of the violent storming of the Capitol?
With a jubilation. We've been over this.
Members of the House and his own vice president, as well as the images he saw on TV of the pummeling and beating and harassment of our police officers. Did he spring into action to stop the violence and save us? Did he even wonder about his own security, since an out-of-control anti-government mob could come after him?
Of course, that's another thing. They didn't even focus on that. Donald Trump was not taken to a secure location. I wonder why that is.
The rally organizers, the save.
He knew he wasn't in danger, even though there was a siege being laid to the Capitol.
That this was not what he had in mind. It was a big mistake. Call it off, call it off, call it off. As
but less than a mile down the road, Trump is sitting in the White House.
National television? No.
I don't know the exact distance. It might be like 2 miles.
He reveled in it. He exulted in it.
But it's
he could not
right fucking there.
Around him did not share his delight. And then a long period of silence ensued while the mob beat.
He literally said he would be there with them.
As you saw on security footage.
Told them to march to the Capitol at a rally which they did not have a permit for a march attached to it for. I don't know how much clearer it could be.
Members say they wanted to kill. They were both in real danger.
If you're just joining us, we are moments away from the actual vote of conviction and wrapping this bad bitch up.
The courage of a lot of people in this room. Here's what Republican Representative Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio said. He's a former.
We are maybe 15, 20 minutes into
the president to help to stand
2 hours of Democratic closing arguments, followed by 2 hours of the defense's closing arguments.
We are begging, essentially, and he was nowhere to be found.
Followed by, it appears to be the final vote, but.
And as I've emphasized this morning, that dereliction of duty, that desertion of duty was central.
Hopefully we get some sort of criminal action.
And inextricable.
And with the vote taking place this afternoon, I can't imagine that they would do anything but acquit.
What he was thinking as he provoked.
But the tide with the breaking news last night and the news cycle the way it was, I absolutely think they should have delayed this shit. They should have called witnesses. They should have reconvened next week.
During the attack,
let the story that broke last night have the Sunday morning news cycle to fester, and let all the senators watch it on, because like it's not just about the trial. You gotta take everything else into account. And I'm the new media messiah here. Broadcasting is my thing. That's everything that they do needs to be in relation to the media and the media cycle.
That day, since he was not surprised,
those Sunday morning shows, every single person in Washington watches that. That would have been the topic on every single one of those shows. The calling of the witnesses the coming week
rather than with
the story from CNN that broke.
Rather than with the Constitution.
The Democrats missed a golden opportunity. They fucked up.
Actions and inactions, his culpable state of mind during the attack, as he will establish.
There is talk. Apparently, it's not going to be. If you're hoping for a new party, it's not going to be Trump that splits off. The Republican Party is now the party of Trump. 100%. If you get a new party, it will be the Never Trumpers, the Lincoln Project, or the Lincoln Party will be what it's called, Patriot Party, whatever they decide to fucking call themselves.
How combustible the situation was. He knew there were many people in the crowd who were
ready
to jump
hey,
into
Igloo.
action,
So,
engage in violence at any signal that he needed them to fight.
CNN reported last night
And that's exactly what
new details in a Kevin McCarthy
right down Pennsylvania at the Capitol.
call with Trump that happened on the day of. Let's flip back over to the screen here.
And we all know
this happened just like an hour after
they disrupted the peaceful transfer of power.
They gavelled down last night.
Convinced that they were acting on.
So this is the sentence that we didn't know before.
Protection.
So Kevin McCarthy asked Trump. First Trump says it's Antifa, and Kevin McCarthy says, "No, sir, it's your supporters." But we knew that already. The part we didn't know was Trump saying, "Well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are."
President Trump must be.
The Democrats did a about face this morning and wanted to call Representative Butler that testified to this. Apparently, also, Kevin McCarthy responded back to that with, "Who the fuck do you think you were talking to?" So that's been what the debate has been about today. The Democrats actually voted to call witnesses. The Republicans requested, hey, we're going to call 301 witnesses if you call that one witness. So we'll just let you read that into the record. And the Democrats took that, and I think that was a mistake. The Democrats should have delayed it and let this story simmer on the Sunday news shows tomorrow morning.
And flagpoles. And then he not only provoked that very same crowd.
So we ended the witness section. There were no objections to any of the
during his speech
testimony. So this is the closing arguments. We're about 30 minutes into the Democrats and their closing arguments.
Was presiding over the process.
We're just mere hours away from the actual vote on conviction. So we're bringing it on home. By 5 o'clock Eastern time, we will know if Trump has been convicted or acquitted. More than likely.
When he told that crowd to fight like hell, he incited violence targeted at the Capitol, and he most certainly foresaw it. My colleague, Manager Dean, will stand up after me and walk you through the overwhelming evidence that supports
it. Really looked like public opinion and the news cycle was turning against the Republicans, and I think the Democrats made a mistake
when he knew it
in not letting that play out a couple more days.
We do not know about what the president did that day, because the president, that is former President Trump, has remained silent about what he was doing during one of the bloodiest attacks on our Capitol since 1812. Despite a full and fair...
Vander Veen's presentation this morning, he was full of self-righteous indignation. He pounded on his podium.
We would all do that.
And he made points against arguments nobody even fucking made. He got upset because Raskin apparently said articles of impeachment. And he took exception. There's only one article
that we know to be true despite the president's refusal to testify, which his counsel either ignored entirely or...
But he's just wanting to get up there and make a spectacle, and that's why it's going to be interesting when he gets back up there.
Let me quickly just touch on a few
But
things.
I also wouldn't be surprised if the Republicans or Trump's defense get up there and just say one sentence, two sentence.
And I want to be very clear.
Sit the fuck back down. Act like it's a mic drop moment.
In terms of the time,
because that'll get play. Because you got to think about it. It doesn't matter in the trial.
When they were entitled to have them,
they're not there to make a argument on the law. But that's a fantastic soundbite for OAN and Newsmax. That's a fantastic little clip to share around on Facebook.
They have not elected.
Their closing arguments, they just get up there, they say one or two sentences and sit
What's
the fuck
actually
back
happening.
down. Act like it's a mic drop moment.
We got these tweets, which are, of course,
Pigeon
statements
chest
from
it.
the former president. from
Shit
a
on the
public-
board, knock over all the pieces, and act like you won.
You also know the president's claims about evidence being manipulated also are untrue.
You absolutely can count on the Dems to shoot themselves in the foot. Now, once again, no, I'm not necessarily correct on this. This is just my fucking opinion.
Turn to the facts.
Maybe they're right. I also don't know what all the arguments were back and forth. I wasn't present for the negotiations.
And when he knew it. And at the outset, let me say this. As you may recall, in direct response to a question yesterday, President Trump's counsel stated, and I quote, "At no point
This is,
was the president
if you'll
informed the
direct
vice
your attention
president
over
was
here.
in any danger," end quote. As we
Ah,
walk
fuck.
through these undisputed facts, you will see quite clearly that is simply not true. As you can see here, from just after 12 p.m. to just before 2 p.m.,
Trump's defense team says they have 301 witnesses that they want to call. 301 witnesses they want to call. So that was
down to the Capitol.
their offer. Like, you call this one, we're going to call
The
301.
evidence of people broadcasting that on their phones. He finished his speech at about 1:11 p.m., at which point a much larger wave surged toward us here at the Capitol, ripping down scaffolding and triggering calls for law enforcement.
Was that a potato, Sierra?
30 minutes later, at 1:49 p.m., as the
The Dems should have subpoenaed Trump.
Trump tweeted a video
If
of
I
his
was in charge of this
rally
shit,
with the
and like,
caption,
I'm almost positive they have the power, because even
"Take it anymore."
Trump's defense team was like, well, why didn't they subpoena Trump? I'm like, yes, why didn't they
2.5
subpoena
hours
Trump?
Following that tweet, the situation here drastically.
Call Pence, call McCarthy.
Insurrectionists breached the Capitol barriers, then its steps, then the complex.
Call the QAnon shaman. I want to see him. Come
Insurrectionist
on.
mob had overwhelmed the
Jenna
police
Ryan, the real estate agent.
attack on the Capitol.
Tis was a hot
As you all know,
potato.
This attack occurred and played out on live television. Every major network was showing it. We've shown you during the
The
course of
defense
side
is
by
definitely
side
potato.
Exactly what the president would have seen on TV or his Twitter account. We've also
To get him
shown
to
you
perjure himself.
2:12 p.m. images of Vice President.
That's why you would call a compulsive liar to testify under oath. Oh, I think you knew that. You're being
Play all that
sarcastic.
for you. For timing purposes, here's the footage reacting to Vice President Pence leaving the floor.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Audio. They just cut out. It looks like they and
It
sometimes the
seemed
Senate
like they just ushered
controls
Mike
it.
Pence out really quickly.
Yes, they did. That's exactly what just happened there. They ushered Mike Pence out. They moved him fast. I saw the motions too.
So yeah, that's the part that I missed. I didn't know why the Senate
Somehow, the President of the United States
was
not.
at a session. We were watching the
President had
House
no
at that
idea
moment.
His Vice President.
Because I was flipping back and forth between the two that I thought were more interesting.
Because violent rioters had broken into the Capitol with thousands more.
Also, it looks like my camera is fucking up.
Completely overwhelmed.
Are you guys seeing
This was on
that?
live television. So
I've got a new camera.
That the President of the United States knew less about
And
this.
I was late waking up this morning, and I forgot that I was playing with it, but I hadn't changed the settings or anything.
That the Secret Service failed to mention that his Vice President was being rushed from the Senate for his own protection.
Hopefully you can see my
Nobody
pretty
in the
eyes
White House thought to alert him.
better.
That none of our law enforcement agencies raised a concern to the Commander-in-Chief that the Vice President
No, it's doing like a glitch,
from the Senate floor
but it may just be me on OBS.
assaulted the Capitol. That simply cannot be.
It glitches out every. It doesn't do it often,
It grows more
but it looks like it
and more
glitches out like every
inconceivable.
10 minutes or something.
Let's continue forward in time. Between 2:12 to 2:24, the Senate recessed. Speaker Nancy Pelosi was ushered off the floor. The Capitol Police announced a breach and a lockdown, and the insurrectionist mob began chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And it was unfolding.
Still, I do not understand why they didn't grab Pence and just like
the
whoop.
entire world.
The Secret Service yanked him out too
Does it
fast.
strike you as credible?
All the senators would have been like, well, why didn't
Not a
we give him
single
Mike
person
Pence? If that's all they
informed the
want,
president
shit.
that his vice president had been evacuated, or that the president didn't glance at the television or his Twitter account and learn about the events that were happening. Remember, this was the day of the Electoral College. Remember his obsession with...
I don't know what Pence would say, honestly.
He's not credible that the president at no point...
He's getting ready to launch a podcast. He wants the Trump followers to listen to him.
Senators, I submit to you these facts.
That's all. I wish they would have made him testify about that. That's for sure.
2:24 p.m. after rioters...
That it took all the rest of the heads of the government,
after rioters
absent Trump, in order to activate the National Guard for backup. That's astounding. And that shows that Trump was in on it.
President Trump decided...
He was in on it.
...his own vice president on Twitter.
And I don't think the Democrats focused on that enough. If that's the one critique I have of them.
The vice president's danger, but he still sent out a tweet attacking him, further inciting the very mob that was in just a few feet of him inside of this very building. The vice president was...
Yeah, there's a Republican congressperson's quote, like, my God, he's stoking them, or whatever they say.
And had erected
I might be misquoting them.
A noose outside. And as we've shown, the mob responded to President Trump's attack instantly. The tweet was read aloud on a bullhorn, if you remember that video. Insurrectionists began chanting again about Mike Pence. And in those critical moments, we see President Trump engaging in a dereliction of his duty by further inciting the mob in real time to target the vice president with knowledge that the insurrection was ongoing, and that's, of course, included in the conduct charged in this article of impeachment. The former president's counsel's suggestion otherwise is completely wrong. His further incitement is impeachable conduct.
2 weeks is being generous.
Continued during the course of this assault itself, and it's part of the constitutional crime and was entirely and completely...
I mean, I didn't see what... I didn't...
failure to protect the Congress.
I knew something was going to happen. I never in a million years would have thought they would have been able to breach the Capitol.
So I want to be clear about certain facts that are not in dispute.
The Trump supporters' actions don't surprise me. What surprises me is the response from the government back.
Remember, by this phone call, the vice...
And that's just yet another indication of like, wow, we have really made the presidency far too powerful.
After that, tweeted an attack on him, which the insurgents read on a bullhorn.
And we need to rein in the executive branch.
He didn't reach out to check on the vice president's safety. He called a senator to ask about delaying the certification.
But also, in order to rein in the executive branch,
Senator Tuberville
we need reforms in Congress. We need reforms on the Senate and the court to make them more democratic.
The president said a few words. I said, Mr. President, they're taking the vice president out, and they want me to get off the phone, and I've got to go, end quote. That was his second evacuation that day. A minute later...
Exactly. That unitary executive theory only applies to Republicans.
Is a traitor. At this point, even if somehow he'd missed it earlier, it's inconceivable that the former president, was unaware that the vice president was in danger. And what does the president do after hearing that? Does he rush to secure the Capitol? Does he do anything to quell the mob? Does he call his vice president to check on his safety?
He didn't even call the vice president.
The answer to those questions, too. There can be no dispute. He took none of those steps. Not a single one.
You know, I'm interested in that question as well. Hold on. You want to find out? Let's watch the clip here.
In the hundreds? Michael Vanderbeek was saying, right, that hundreds of people. It's a big list.
So it was just a piece of paper that said 301.
So how many witnesses do we have? 301.
What is 301? That means 301?
Can you tell us any names?
Just getting started.
Now we know that it was going to be the over 100 people that were charged by the government, by the federal government.
These are your supporters.
In relation to the Capitol attack.
What does the president say in response?
Exactly. Also, I didn't realize Grassley was that far up the chain of succession. That surprised me when I saw it. I thought the next one down after Pelosi was I thought it was like transportation secretary or some shit. It was like there's one of the secretaries that's up there. It's like why are they that high?
Upset about the election than you are. The president just said he can.
But yeah, I didn't know Grassley was that high on the fucking chain
saying,
until I saw everything.
Let me say that again. Not only was the president fully aware of the vice president's situation and the situation that we were all in when he was asked for help, when he was asked to defend the Capitol less than 30 minutes after inciting this violence against his own vice president, President Trump refused that request for assistance.
Yeah, I thought the pro tempore was further down. I thought it was a bunch of cabinet level positions.
Stopping the certification of the election of his opponent.
But I was wrong.
He incited the violence.
And I can't believe Chuck Grassley is that close to the presidency.
President and further incited the insurrection to pressure.
But I guess in terms of Republicans, you could get a lot worse than Grassley now.
Certification, and he refused to send help to Congress.
But you know what? The thing that's amazing to me is the people who Trump called.
Danger.
He kept trying to call Tommy Tuberville, the newly elected
and he did these things.
Senator from Alabama, who had only been in the Senate a couple of days. He didn't call his vice president. He called Tommy Tuberville.
That was underway at that point. He chose retaining his own power.
Does anybody else find that wild? And then he didn't even call Tommy Tuberville.
More damning evidence.
He accidentally called Mike Lee twice.
The call ended with a screaming match.
No, he didn't do it twice. Rudy also thought he was calling Tommy Tuberville and called Mike Lee.
Senators,
it happened twice, but both times weren't Trump.
He didn't do anything to help his vice president or any of you or any of the brave officers and other employees serving the American people that day. His sole focus was stealing the election for himself. And he apparently has still not thought of anyone else. According to more new facts revealed last night, the vice president's team does not agree with the president's counsel or the president's counsel's assessment.
Didn't call him for 5 days.
Hence, this team does not agree with the Trump lawyer's assessment that Trump was concerned about Pence's safety. Trump didn't call him that day or for 5 days after that. No one else on Trump's team called as Pence was evacuated to one room in another with screaming mob nearby.
Oh, the defense is upset. They've got objection.
The council will.
Aw, thank you.
Senators, remember when
you're so sweet.
Way of knowing what materials evidence or not. The counsel for the
Vanderveen is upset about something, but what's new?
And the chair will consider the issue.
Senators, remember, as one of you said during this attack, they could have killed us all.
The camera definitely gives me more color. I'm happy about that. The other camera washed me out. I look fucking pale as fuck.
Not only incited it, but continued inciting it as it occurred with attacks on his vice president, and then willfully refused to defend us, furthering his provocation and incitement by the mob, siding with the mob, siding with the violent insurrectionists, criminals who killed and injured police officers sworn to protect us because they were, quote, more upset about the election than Leader McCarthy. Those facts are undisputed. President Trump has not offered any evidence or any argument to disprove them. His lawyers almost entirely ignored these facts in their short presentation. We have only his counsel's false claim yesterday that, quote, at no point was the president informed that the vice president was in any danger, end quote. A claim
we know that's not true.
Not just by common sense.
It's impossible.
But by the timeline you have seen, and also the vice president's legal team. So there can be no doubt that at the moment we most needed a president to preserve protect and defend us.
I find it unfathomable that the Secret Service could take an action and the president not know about it.
He violated his oath. He left all of us and officers like Eugene Goodman to our own devices against an attack he had incited and he alone could stop. That is why he must be convicted. And I'd like to conclude by making one final point that follows directly from what I just discussed. Our case and the article of impeachment.
I don't know if this is his conclusion or the conclusion from the Democrats.
Trump's dereliction of duty on January 6th. His failure as insider-in-chief to immediately.
They've used about 45 minutes of their 2 hours thus far.
Everything in his power to secure the
maybe
Capitol.
50.
That is a further basis on which to convict, and there can be no doubt of that. The ongoing constitutional misconduct is like any continuing offense, and the proof of that is overwhelming.
Your comment is posting.
Most directly,
We see
his
you, dear.
dereliction of duty offers conclusive, irrefutable evidence that he acted willfully.
When he was being swiftly evacuated off the floor in the video that they showed.
Sad, or
Yeah, it is.
shocked, like virtually everyone else.
You're
in
on the
America.
screen.
He was reported by
There's
those
probably a little delay.
delighted. Rather than rush to our aid or demand his mob retreat, he watched the attack on TV and praised the mob to Leader McCarthy as more loyal to him. More upset about the election.
I totally see your pretty face.
His reaction is also further evidence of his intent.
I don't see your pretty face on the screen. I see it over
Exactly the
here
way a
with your
person would act
avatar.
if they had indeed incited the mob to violence to stop the steal. Moreover, as I've shown, President Trump's dereliction.
I'm going to go refill my tea real fast because I do not want to miss Vander Veen or Castor. Either or, whichever one speaks, it's going to be fucking fun.
He attacked Vice President Pence. While he tried to stop the steal, he spread the big lie. We all saw how his mob responded in real time. This further incitement was part of his dereliction of duty, was also part of his course of conduct, encouraging and provoking the mob to violence. President Trump's dereliction of duty also highlights how foreseeable the attack was to him. In his tweet just after 6 p.m., he said, and I quote, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long." This tweet continued his endorsement of the attack, his failure to condemn it, his desertion of duty. But it also reveals his view that this was, of course, what would happen when Congress refused his demand to reject the election that he continued to tell his supporters was stolen and he had actually won in a landslide. Again, he wasn't surprised. He saw this as a predictable result of his repeated demands that his followers stop the steal by any means possible. This was all connected. His dereliction of duty, his desertion of duty was part and parcel of the crime charged in the impeachment. And it's certainly a basis on which to vote for conviction. If you believe that he willfully refused to defend us and the law enforcement officers fighting to save us, and that he was delighted by the attack, and that he saw it as a natural result of his call to stop the steal, and that he continued to incite and target violence as the
all those things are true.
unfolded, we respectfully submit you must vote to convict and disqualify so that the events of
I think you should, but Republicans are spineless pieces of
in
shit.
this country.
Mr. President.
I'd like to call up Ms. Dean.
Mr. President, I've got a point of order. Mr.
Right,
President,
yeah, so we're going to get a presentation.
House Manager Cicilline.
What the fuck?
The senator will withhold. I'm advised by the parliamentarian that debate is not in order.
That debate is not in order because this is not debate. He said something that's not true.
The quorum has been suggested.
There's clearly a quorum, sir.
And the clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
I want to know what they take issue with. Let's find out. God damn.
Consent to suspend the quorum call.
Is there objection? Their objection is heard.
Mr. Barrasso.
So one of the senators, it appears one of the Republican senators has taken issue with something that Representative Cicilline.
Mr. Bennett.
House impeachment managers were in the middle of their closing arguments here when you heard Senator Mike Lee stand up and object to
Of course it was Mike Lee.
remarks made by one of the impeachment managers, David Cicilline, again objecting
Oh, it is Cicilline.
to
My bad.
how the characterization of a phone call that President Trump made to, he was trying to reach Tommy Tuberville. Instead, he reached Mike Lee on that day on January 6th. So unsure what will happen with this objection. They're in a quorum call.
He made the same objection on
off microphone
Tuesday?
right now. We'll continue to watch live coverage.
Might have been Wednesday. I think it might have been Wednesday.
Mrs. Blackburn.
So Trump called Mike Lee thinking he was calling Senator Tommy Tuberville. Mike Lee was quoted during the proceedings as saying, "This is not Tommy, sir," and handing the phone to him. That's all he's quoted as saying. Mike Lee took objection to that the other day, and the Democrats just struck it from the record. They're like, all right, whatever. It's not relevant to our case. But now apparently Mike Lee is once again objecting to something involving the call that he was supposedly on. This is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell having a conversation with Castor and Vanderveen, it appears, I think. Vanderveen, I believe, is the more animated one there. As we have seen throughout this proceeding. I have a Smoky in my lap. He's a very needy cat. He's upset that we had an alarm set this morning. We got out of bed as early as we did. I think he's telling me it's nap time because I woke him up so early this morning. Most cats wake you up when they don't have anything in their bowl. Not Smokey. Smokey lays with me until I'm ready to get up. Maynard, on the other hand, does everything he can to wake me up. He makes the wildest sounds, too. Yep, yep, yep. I'm not in the most comfortable position here, Smokey. Can we sit you up here? Oh, you're tangled in my headphones. Hold up, bud. No, don't drink my tea. Some very impassioned debate going on. That was lead House impeachment manager Jamie Raskin. I believe McConnell's in that group over there. There's a whole... Chuck Schumer is sitting there with them. I think I see Amy Klobuchar to the side there. So real all-star cast. Hopefully we get this shit wrapped up. I'm gonna watch a movie or play some video games or something. It's been a long fucking week. I don't know who that dude is that's doing the pointing. Actually, I think that might be Chuck Schumer. It's also kind of hard to tell who everybody is with their masks on. Yeah, I think that is Senate Majority Leader. No, I think Schumer's sitting there at that desk at the end of the aisle. I don't know who the other dude is. Also, I'm not good with faces. Okay, so the Republicans threatened to call 301 witnesses to the Democrats' one. But they made the offer that the Democrats could read the statement from the CNN article into the record and forego the witnesses, and the Democrats took them up on that offer. I think that was a bad move. We are actually in closing arguments right now. Probably about halfway or more through the Democrats' presentation in their closing arguments. Senator Mike Lee has objected to something that was stated regarding the call. It's the same thing that he raised a fuss about the other night. The call where Trump thought he was calling Tommy Tuberville, and he called Mike Lee. Mike Lee said something to the effect of, "No, this isn't Tommy, sir," and handed the phone to Tommy Tuberville.
Once again, the Senate
He apparently takes issue with the Democrats'
this afternoon. You can see the huddles on the floor around
characterization of that.
And the House impeachment managers to Mike Lee's objection. Burgess Everett of Politico reporting once again, Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, has a point of order after David Cicilline, one of the impeachment managers, talked about the Trump call to Lee's.
After they wrapped up their presentations last night, there was a breaking story on CNN. Hold on, I've got it over here. Where we got new details about a Trump-McCarthy shouting match during the insurrection. Trump told Kevin McCarthy that the people at the Capitol were Antifa rioters. Kevin McCarthy said, "No, sir, those are your supporters." Trump's response was, "Well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are." So then McCarthy responded to Trump saying that with, "Who the fuck do you think you're talking to?" This was according to Republican Representative Butler. So we came in this morning, the Democrats, by all indications, weren't going to call witnesses. This story broke an hour after testimony wrapped up yesterday. They came in this morning, they decided to call witnesses. They said they were going to call Representative Butler to give her characterization of this call. The Republicans responded with that they were going to call 301 witnesses. To the Democrats, 1. But they made them an offer while they were in recess that if the Democrats just read the statement from the CNN story into the record, that they wouldn't call their 301 witnesses. The Democrats took them up on that offer. Yes, the 100 at least. They actually said it this morning. Trump's defense team said, we're going to call at least 100 of the people that have been charged by the federal government in connection to the riot. So the Democrats took them up on the offer. I think that was a mistake. I think the Democrats should have drugged this out. Apparently, I mean, I don't know what the negotiations were, but just like bird's eye view for me right now, I don't think that was the right move because public sentiment seemed to be moving against the Republicans. And this story last night by CNN brought down a landslide of criticism of the Republicans that were going to vote to acquit. I think the Democrats should have stretched this out so that this whole proceeding takes place past the Sunday morning talk shows tomorrow. I think the Sunday morning talk shows would have focused on that damning piece of evidence. Every single person in Washington watches those Sunday morning talk shows. I think the Democrats missed a golden opportunity. So we have moved into the closing arguments phase. The Democrats are about 40, 50 minutes into their presentation. Both sides have 2 hours. Mike Lee has objected to something about the call that, supposedly Trump was calling Tommy Tuberville. Mike Lee answers, says something to the effect of, no, sir, this isn't Tommy, and hands the phone to newly elected Senator Tommy Tuberville. Now, Mike Lee has objected to the Democrats' characterization of that event. He did that the other night. The Democrats said, we don't care, strike that from the record. But that's currently why we are conversing now. And let's find out what's happening from Chuck Schumer.
The senator from Utah.
I withdraw my appeal.
The appeal withdrawn. The chair would advise everybody. The evidentiary record is closed. S-Res 47 described the scope of those things not admitted into evidence as those referenced in trial. New evidence is not permitted in closing argument. References to such new evidence will be stricken.
So I assume because they struck the Democrats, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. Bringing my years of news reporting experience and radio personality to the stream to try to break down the really confusing and arcane procedures of our stupid-ass government. Hopefully with a little flair and comedy. Yes, I said flair. Woo!
Esteemed senators, good afternoon. We are grateful for your kind attention this week as we engaged in a process formulated and
did Pelosi throw a fit?
The founders in my home city of Philadelphia.
I bet the Republicans absolutely would have called Pelosi.
In 1787.
Holy shit.
34 years ago. My colleague, Mr. Cicilline.
Thank you for that update. I had not heard that one. But also, I've been watching the proceedings. I haven't been able to check the news.
Have raised questions about. First, the defense suggests that this was just.
And I could totally see Pelosi throwing a fit about that. Fuck you, Pelosi.
Insurrection.
They should have done it. They should have took their fucking medicine.
Because the attack was pre-planned by some.
I mean, I have no love lost for Hillary Clinton, but I will at least say that woman got out there, would testify for 13, 14 hours straight, never blinked a fucking eye.
What we allege. So let's be clear. We are not suggesting that Donald
That's a bad bitch right there.
Speech by itself incited the attack.
I don't like your policies, ma'am, but you proved you've got bigger balls than most of the people in Congress.
Incited the attack. The
Hi,
defense
Smokey.
is correct that the insurrection was pre-planned. That supports our point. We argued, and the evidence overwhelmingly confirms, that Donald Trump's conduct over many months incited his supporters to believe, one, his big lie, that the only way he could lose was if the election was rigged. Two, that to ensure the election would not be stolen, to prevent
My
the
sweet
fraud,
kitty.
they had to stop the steal. And three, they had to fight to stop the steal, or they would not have a country anymore. This conduct,
Where my country gone?
and it culminated in Donald Trump sending a save the date on December the 19th, 18 days before.
By the way, where the fuck has South Park been?
Exactly when.
Why have we not gotten new episodes yet?
And who to fight. And while he was doing this, he spent $50 million from his legal defense fund to simultaneously broadcast his message to stop the steal over all major networks. Donald Trump invited them, he incited them, then he directed them. Here are a few clips that will help bring that story to light.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. And this election will be the most rigged election in history.
You guys didn't go back far enough. Go back to 2016 when he said.
Election disaster in history, and the only way they can take this election away from us is
They haven't been on in over a year. They did the pandemic special.
rigged election. It's the only way.
September, October, around that time.
Making sure that there's a peaceful transfer of power.
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
It's the only way we're gonna. That's the only way we're gonna lose, is if there's mischief, and it'll have to be on a big scale. So be careful.
Why? So what kind of a hypocrite is Cruz? He doesn't think that Trump should be called to testify, but Nancy Pelosi should? What the fuck? The fuck is wrong with you, Ted Cruz?
The American public. This is an embarrassment.
I don't understand why would Nancy Pelosi be fucking.
Win this election.
Let them call you. Go up there. Tell them what you knew. I can't imagine Nancy Pelosi had any input into the decision not to beef up security.
In secret, and this is a case where they're trying to.
But if she did, fucking hold her accountable. Fuck Nancy Pelosi.
And we can't let that happen.
You can't let another person steal that election from you. All over the country, people are together in holding up.
But fuck her for not getting up there and testifying if they wanted her to. Call their bluff. Call their bluff. Play hardball.
Taken place in our 2020 election. We don't have a country anymore. We cannot allow.
All right, call all their bluff. The fucking Trump team said, why didn't you subpoena Trump? Why didn't you subpoena Trump?
To save your country with everything you have, you're not going to have a country left. We will not bend. We will not break. We will not yield.
God, I want to be in the communications office. I want to be one of the strategists for Democrats. So fucking bad.
All of us here today do not want to.
I want to be their fucking Roger Stone.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't
Ethical Roger Stone.
steps involved. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal, because you'll never take back
That position, not that kind of personality.
You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. Make no mistake, this election was stolen from you, from me, and from the country, and we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our point is this. This was not one speech. This was a deliberate, purposeful effort by Donald Trump over many months that resulted in the well-organized mob's attack on January the 6th.
It wasn't just months.
The violence. Defense counsel argues that there is no way that Donald Trump could have known what would happen. Yet, we are not suggesting, nor is it necessary for us to prove that Donald Trump knew every detail of what would unfold on January the 6th, or even how horrible and deadly the attack would become.
But he did know. As he looked out on that sea of thousands in front of him, some wearing body armor and helmets, others carrying weapons, that the result would be
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The evidence is overwhelming. The evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates this.
And that is why Democrats are pussies that I can't stand. As I shouldn't say pussies in a derogatory
Donald Trump
term,
knew
in a derogatory
he was
way.
inciting, leading up to January the 6th. He saw the violence they were capable of. He had a pattern and practice of praising and encouraging supporters of violence, never condemning it. It is not a coincidence that those same people, the Proud Boys, the organizer of the Trump Caravan, the supporters and speakers.
The BLM Antifa stuff is irrelevant, but you absolutely know the Republicans would bring that shit up.
And Donald Trump's behavior was different. This was not just a comment by an official or a politician fighting for a cause. This was months of cultivating.
But now I have predicted the Republicans, Trump's defense is probably going to get up there. Be very short and to the point.
Rage straight to a joint session.
A couple of sentences, it's going to be a soundbite.
His vice president.
I may be wrong on this. They may get up and actually do their jobs, but I don't think they will. They don't need to. They don't have to drive home any kind of point.
Posts online of attack plans. Law enforcement warned that these.
They just had to get to the vote, and the Republican senators, 45 of them,
there were credible reports that many would be armed and ready to attack.
Just don't give a shit about this country.
Despite these credible warnings of serious, dangerous threats to our Capitol, when the crowd was standing in front of the president, ready to take orders and attack, he said, "We're going to the Capitol."
Okay, I can see that.
We fight like
but I think they could.
Hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
If you had played hardball on this, I think you could have got a conviction. I think you absolutely.
What do you want to?
It's going to take a lot of phone calls to senators.
Stand back and stand by.
Welcome to the.
But I'm serious. Like a Sunday news cycle would have done wonders for the tenor of this proceeding.
You see the way our people, they were protecting his bus yesterday because they're nice. So his bus, they had hundreds of cars.
Because think about it, you got to make the Republicans go on the Sunday news shows and defend this. They did not want to do that.
Would not do everything in their power to keep Trump in office, then we would destroy the GOP.
And now instead of tomorrow's Sunday news shows being about the breaking news from CNN, the testimony that's damning, it's going to be about the conviction and the vote. So people that haven't been paying attention to this whole proceeding aren't going to be seeing that argument that makes the point perfectly that Trump is guilty. No, they're going to be arguing about whether the senators should have voted to acquit or not. They missed an opportunity. The Democrats missed an opportunity.
Senators, the violence on January the 6th was demonstrably foreseeable. Trump even said so himself at 6:01 p.m. the day of the attack.
But also, I wasn't back there in the negotiations. I don't know what was going on. The whole Nancy Pelosi thing, that sounds like Nancy Pelosi was being shitty about it. And then it was more about like herself than the actual cause.
Final point. The insurrectionists.
They are weak. Now, I will say I've been impressed with Chuck Schumer more than I ever have with Chuck Schumer. But that's because he is worried to death about a woman by the name of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez running against him in 2022.
But it is not true.
So that just tells me that we need to primary every fucking Democrat we can.
Evidence makes clear the exact opposite, that they did this for Donald Trump, at his invitation, at his direction, at his command. They said
I don't know that that's best for her right now.
After the attack, leading up to January.
I think she is a senator or
this was for Donald
very high profile in the executive branch.
One supporter wrote, and I quote,
within
if
15
Congress
years.
Legally certifies Biden, Trump would have absolutely no choice but to demand
But this cycle might not be the time.
and kill / beat them up for it. They even say publicly, openly, and proudly that President Trump would help them commandeer the national.
Well, we as
So
progressives,
all they have to do is overwhelm
we as
2,000
leftists
Capitol Police officers.
need to be focused on 2022.
Trump supporters chanted
And
his words back to
in
him.
my 20 years of
The
covering
eagle-eyed
politics,
repeated
that's
his
been the weak
commands, as
spot.
Mr. Getz showed you.
Us as
During the
leftists,
attack, the
not
insurrectionists
focused
have
hard
captured
enough on
Donald
primaries.
Trump's words from his
I
tweets,
don't think that's going to
rallies,
happen
and
anymore.
from the
Matter of fact,
the speech
I
of
would
the
say
sixth.
that the
They held
liberals
signs that
have gone
said
back to
and
brunch,
chanted,
that did indeed happen, and it's us that are like
They
sitting
read his
here
tweets over
paying
bullhorns,
attention to everything.
amplifying his demands.
And you can
Another
kind of see it
rioter,
reflected in the
while
Biden
live streaming
administration
the
thus
insurrection
far.
From the Capitol said, quote, he'll be
The
happy
liberals went back to
fighting for
brunch,
Trump.
and we're still here in the fight in the trenches.
What's more, the insurrectionists
So
were
it's
not
our party for the
They
taking.
believed they were following the orders from our commander-in-chief. They felt secure enough in the legitimacy of their actions to take selfies, to post photos and videos on social media.
They sure did.
After the attack, rioter after rioter confirmed this. too.
I know. I can't
Jenna
wait.
Ryan, who was later accused
I
for
can't, in
her role in the
2022,
insurrection, said,
after a
quote,
couple of years of the Senate map not looking really good for the Democrats, this is like the best Senate map the Democrats have had in a while. So
President Trump
2022
requested
is
that
going
he
to be an
be
exciting
seen on
time
the 6th. When it became clear that Donald Trump would not protect them,
for us as
some of his supporters
leftists,
said they felt duped.
and then hopefully our influence in a more robust Democratic
some
Party
of
that
this
exists
evidence.
after 2022. For once, because usually it's the
And even if they
midterms decimate the party in
for
power.
a second that they're going to get away with it today,
It's possible the Republicans take the House. But the
Because
Senate map
today is
lines up
just
well
today.
for Democrats.
and today is just the beginning. They haven't seen a resistance until they have seen a patriot fight for their country.
Who in the fuck is Katrina Pearson?
Parties will withhold.
This is crooked.
The parties will withhold.
It is in the record.
The evidentiary record is closed. S. 47 describes
Yeah, those were videos that I don't believe we had seen before.
as those referenced in trial. New evidence is not permitted in closing argument. References to such new evidence will be stricken. Who yields time?
Mr. President, the statement was in evidence, the slide was not, so we will withdraw the slide. But the statement was in evidence.
Yeah.
They told you themselves they were following the president's orders. And you'll see something clearly. Donald Trump knew who these people were. As the slide shows, the people he cultivated, whose violence he praised,
I did. I loved it.
the Proud Boys who Donald Trump told to stand back,
Yes.
stand by.
They hadn't played the clip before, and no new evidence is admitted
Keith Lee, organizer
in closing
of the
arguments.
Trump caravan that tried to drive the Biden campaign bus off the road. Katrina Pearson, the speaker at the 2nd Million MAGA March. They were all there.
Why didn't they play that? That seemed like relevant clip to play earlier. If the Republicans could, they would. Million moron march, exactly. Now, I will say the Republicans have got her flustered. They've thrown her off her game.
The video you're about to see is in the record. Oh, correction. The record did include appropriately the last video. So we will keep that in the record, and I will keep it in my closing remarks.
Well, there you go.
Can we play the next video?
I don't remember seeing it. We've watched all this. What some Republicans just yelled, they don't even know what they put in. Wow. Shocked. Shocked us. Yeah, I don't, bullet necklace, I don't remember that. But there's been so many dumb fucks in Trump's orbit. It's hard to keep up with all of them. Only the best people. Only the best people. And by the way, the White House was like a ghost town in the last month. There was nobody working there. A necklace of Glocks. Well, I mean, Christians wear a medieval torture device around their necks. Thousands of people from the State Department, from the DOD. Oh my God! Was this like a play on, like a Black Panther thing or something? Was that supposed to be like a, oh, you guys can't see it. Was that supposed to be like some kind of Wakanda shit? So this is the Katrina Pierce in the video they just played that the Republicans want stricken from the record. Her necklace of bullets. Wow. That's a very good question. What did some of the acting people do?
The Senate paused once again in the Senate impeachment trial against former President Donald Trump. The defense lawyers for the former president, objected to and are claiming that the House impeachment managers are including new evidence in their closing arguments. Burgess Everett for Politico notes one of them shouted out, "This is crooked," during the closing arguments. Let's watch.
Yeah, these are like some kind of rifle shells, aren't they? I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a gun person. I kept hearing some kind of water noise. And I didn't know if it was on C-SPAN or if it was because it's like rainy outside and shit, but apparently my sink was on.
Senators will take their seats. The Senate will be in order.
There's a couple different colors. But yeah, this one definitely looks different than that one. So I don't. She's got a couple different ones.
Representative may continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have to say that of all the trials I have ever been a part of, this is certainly one of them. As the slides show,
she's good. I like her.
Violence he praised were all there on January the 6th.
They tried to throw her over game, and she came back.
Told to stand back and stand by in September of 2020. Keith Lee, the organizer of the Trump caravan that tried to drive the Biden campaign bus off the road. Katrina Pearson, the speaker at the second Million MAGA March. They were all there. Here is one final clip, also submitted in the record.
That's what we fucking need to have 30,000 guns up here. That's true. That's what we need.
Senators, some of the insurrectionists are facing criminal charges. Donald Trump was acting as our commander-in-chief. He was our president. He used his office and the authority it commands to incite an attack. And when Congress and the Constitution were under attack, he abandoned his duties, violated his oath, failing to preserve, protect, and defend. That is why we are here, because the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, incited and directed thousands of people to attack the legislative branch. He knew what his supporters were capable of. He inflamed them, sent them down Pennsylvania Avenue.
He knew they were deranged fucking idiots.
But on the day we were certifying the election results, as they were banging on our doors, he failed to defend us, because this is what he wanted. He wanted to remain in power. For that crime against the Republic,
I'm not so sure that he wanted to remain in, like, he does like the power. I think it was more that, like, he is scared to fucking death of the criminal and civil liability he is facing.
I witnessed the horror, but I didn't know.
Hopefully a lot. Hopefully he's bankrupt by the end of the
How
year.
he had invested in it. How many times
Personally
he
bankrupt
incited
this
his
time.
supporters with these lies. How carefully and consistently he incited them
Trump
to
ward
violence
goes under
on
soon.
January
Has
the
to.
6th. While many of us may have tuned out his rallies, I also did not know the extent that his followers were listening, were hanging on his every word. And honestly, I did not know how close the mob actually came to their violent.
There was some kind of study that did you're right about the 300K. It was like
that the death toll
60-something% were preventable.
the bravery of men and women.
65% of
But now we
what
know.
we experienced,
We
the
know
deaths from
bravery of people
coronavirus
like
were completely
Officer Goodman
preventable.
And all the men and women of the Capitol
At
Police,
least.
of the custodians who, with pride and a sense of duty in their work, cleaned up shattered glass, splintered wood, and blood.
God, I haven't even checked the death count
We
in a
know
while.
the
We're probably getting up
sacrifice
close to
of life and
500K.
We know what Donald Trump did. We know what he failed to do. Though it
That's
is
so
difficult
sad.
to bear witness and face the reality of what happened in these halls, what happens if we don't confront these facts? What happens if there is no accountability?
I think he should go on trial at The
We need to
Hague.
get past this. We need to come together. We need to unify.
It would seem there is enough evidence.
don't set
Like,
this
the
right
administration purposely tried to do this herd immunity strategy.
Highest of constitutional crimes by the President of the United States. The past will not be past.
That sounds about
Past
right.
will become our future for my grandchildren and for their children. Senators, we are in a dialogue with history,
Once again, that shows you who runs the fucking world.
with a hope for our future.
It's a little kingdom by the name of Saudi Arabia, and if they want to bomb Yemen,
It may be that no one person here,
we're their bitches, so Yemen's gonna
and
get
yet
bombed.
what we do here, what is being asked of each of us here in this moment will be remembered. History has found us. I ask that you not look the other way.
I didn't know about that bill about burial benefits. Fuck sticks.
I'd now like to bring up Mr. Nagus.
So I don't see Plaskett from the Virgin Islands. I don't see. They probably switched out days.
Mr. President,
481,000
senators. There's an old quote from Henry.
Now we do seem to have plateaued, and deaths are dropping off now.
that courtesies
Hopefully,
of a small and trivial character are the ones that strike deepest in the grateful and appreciating heart. I want to say on behalf of all the House managers, we are very grateful for the courtesies that you've extended to us and to President's Council during the course of this trial. You've heard my colleague, Manager Dean, go through the
it's the
overwhelming
Wuhan
evidence
flu.
that makes clear that President Trump must be convicted.
Everyone here has seen the
I'm not going to
Bo Rat 2, right? with the song, with the inject him with the Wuhan flu. Holy shit.
You might recall a few days ago that I mentioned my expectation that President Trump's lawyers might do everything they could to avoid discussing the facts of this case. And I can understand why. I mean, the evidence that all of us presented, that Manager Dean just summarized, is pretty devastating. And so rather than address it, the president has offered up distractions, excuses.
Vanderveen pounding on the table.
But actually trying to defend against the facts. They said things like, President Trump is now a private citizen, so the criminal justice system can deal with him. Or that we haven't set a clear standard for incitement. They talked a lot about due process, and that all politicians say words like fight. I'd like to take a minute to explain why each of those distractions are precisely that, distractions.
See, that's another example, Cassidy,
the Senate
of like Schumer taking the right position because he's feeling pressure.
Number one, every president is one day a private citizen again. So, I mean, the argument that because President Trump has left office,
I love it,
he shouldn't be impeached for conduct committed while he was in office doesn't make sense. I mean, why would the Constitution include the impeachment power at all if the criminal justice system serves as a suitable alternative once a president leaves office? It wouldn't. Impeachment is a remedy separate and apart from the criminal justice system, and for good reason. The presidency, I mean, it comes with special powers, extraordinary powers, not bestowed on ordinary citizens. And if those powers are abused, they can cause great damage to our country, and they have to be dealt with in a separate forum. This forum. And it would be unwise to suggest that going forward, the only appropriate response to constitutional offenses committed by a president are criminal charges when the president returns to private life. That's not the kind of political system any of us want.
Fucking, I hate these reimbursement things.
System the framers intended.
Reimbursements are bullshit. If the government is giving a benefit, it should be universal, given to everybody, and be easily obtained. If you need to take it back, means test or some shit, you do it through taxes later.
It's not a criminal case.
It is far more efficient to do it that way.
President Trump is charged with a constitutional offense.
And then people don't get stuck without getting the help that they fucking need. Because I don't know if you've never had, if you've ever never had to use government benefits, you don't realize how fucking hard it is to actually obtain them.
Would our framers have considered a president inciting a violent mob?
The hoops you have to jump through to get any sort of government program is absolutely insane. So these people acting like there's people just living off of the government out here and it's an easy fucking job. Fuck no, you're an idiot.
Who among us really thinks the answer to that question is no?
You're exactly right. The people who make $100K a year, which I mean, I don't want to pick on people that make $100K a year.
Just to be absolutely clear, the House, with the sole power of impeachment,
exactly
what the process looks like in the House and the
people making $100K a year are actually bearing the brunt of the government's taxation.
During this trial, the president,
it's that 100 to like 700 grand, where that's the actual middle class
on his behalf,
where you're comfortable.
Presentation of evidence, adversarial presentations, motions.
They're the ones that pay all the fucking taxes because they're not rich enough to be able to take advantage of all the loopholes.
Provide exculpatory evidence. He declined. You can't claim there's no.
So I don't really want to pick on the people making like 100 grand.
And we know this case.
But there will be a bunch of yuppie people that take advantage of these programs.
You lived it. The managers and I, we lived it. Our country lived it.
the government absolutely doesn't pay enough for people to live on.
Right out in the
Like
open.
with like the maximum amount of food stamps you can get. Last time I checked, like back in college, I got food stamps. It's like $200 or $180
from certifying an election.
a month.
If there were ever an exigent circumstance,
I'm lucky that like in order to get the food stamps, you had to work the federal work study program. So I worked for the broadcasting department. I'm lucky that I wasn't dependent upon food stamps to eat, or I would have starved.
spent a lot of time, a whole lot of time.
They were just like a little extra thing for me while I was in college.
Like fight. And of course, you saw the hours of...
I was able to have steak once a week or something.
As I said on Thursday, we trust...
Disability... Don't even get me started with disability benefits. That's
what you will
far less than a poverty wage.
In those video montages?
Oh, you just said that. I'm sorry. I hadn't read the whole comment. I just saw disability benefits. I was like, don't even get me started. You're saying you're right on the money with that.
Capital. That's the difference. The president spent months inflaming his supporters to believe.
But I know it's off topic, but
from them,
this goes into what we've been chatting about here. I watched a video. I think it was Johnny Haynes or whatever. I can't remember what his name is exactly. He worked for Vox, but they laid him off with the coronavirus pandemic. But this is one of his own videos.
Further.
And it was about capitalism and how like capitalism is like absolutely this just magic bullet for poverty. Yanks people right out of poverty. But when you look at all the data taken as a whole, like the benefits of capital go over, like the people in poverty, they get like a lot of benefit from it, and then it dips down, and it's like a negative benefit, and then like the top 1% they get all the benefits.
Do that because they believe those distractions are going to work.
It's just a disproportionate system, but capitalism. So that's why you hear them say all the time, like, "Oh, capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty." I've always thought that was hyperbole. No, it's true. But you need a robust social program as well. I think you need the government to provide jobs to people. I don't understand why you ever have to stand in line at a post office or to get your license at the courthouse or something. Those should be good paying jobs that the government provides that people can go get that helps keep the private sector honest. Helps them like, oh, if I can go work for the post office for fucking $25 an hour, UPS is going to have to pay a comparable wage.
I've read about it in the history books.
So I think that's the guardrails that you put on capitalism.
Archives, sometimes watch them for hours, and yes, I've actually...
And that there should be some sort of UBI, that you get your monopoly money, you get your $200 when you pass go.
Of this country
I think that's the best analogy you can use for a UBI. People understand that. You get your $200 when you pass go.
Slavery was passed.
You get your bare minimum taken care of. And when you do that, when you provide people with that, I think you open people up. You free people up when they have their health care taken care of. They have their, it's Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs and shit.
John Sherman Cooper.
Once you're no longer worried about food and shelter and everything, our minds can do great things. We're freed up to do more.
We made the decision.
Making people go work menial fucking jobs for poverty wages doesn't help us advance as a society.
We've always
God damn it.
To the occasion when it mattered the most. Not by ignoring injustice.
They just take your shit away. And then I bet like you probably have to keep reapplying for shit.
The right thing. And that's why so many nations around the world aspire to be like America.
They take your shit away, you got to start from scratch, and then it's like you got to go through the whole process again, which is like standing there and getting kicked in the balls. Whereas in other countries, you talk to somebody from fucking Canada. If you need to get something from the government, it's like an easy process. It's like call, pick up, boop, 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 boop.
Because the people who
that did the unemployment,
confronted with choices,
like it was a phone call, 5 minutes. Benefits in their account in like 3 days.
of a decision made in this room by this body.
Governments are efficient, but the government had to work for the fucking people.
The first day I stood up in this trial,
Under our hyper-capitalistic society, we've allowed oligarchs to buy the fucking government, and it just works exclusively for them, while finding out new ways to fuck us over so they can privatize shit and make money off of us.
1986. This body...
I'm sorry, Representative Nagoose, for talking over top of you.
President Reagan's veto of legislation imposing sanctions on South Africa during apartheid. 2 senators who sit in this room, one Democrat and one Republican, voted to override that veto.
I'm not high enough for this shit.
About
I've already packed a bowl.
Political favor. And in fact, it was made despite potentially losing political favor. And I have to imagine that that vote was cast like the decisions before it, because there are moments that transcend party politics and that require us to put country above our party, because the consequences of not doing so are just too great. Senators,
I would hope it'd be some kind of televisit, right?
Many folks who are watching...
I wouldn't want to be in any medical facility right now unless it was absolutely necessary.
Manager Raskin, our fellow managers, we're not allowed...
I said medical facility. I've been watching way too much WWE.
Certainly the senators.
Or at least I did. I don't anymore.
This floor is sacred.
They're taking him to a local medical facility.
It's one of the reasons why I, like so many of you, was so offended to see it desecrated by that mob.
Literally desecrated. They smeared shit on the walls.
These hallowed halls that my whole life I have held in such awe.
Once somebody's disabled, how do you not become, like, how are you not disabled later? It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
This will be the time I have the privilege to stand before you like this. When the trial's over, I'll go back to being not an impeachment manager, but
it pisses me off.
Just a House member. The trial will end, and we'll resume our lives and our work. But for some, there will be no end to the pain of what happened on January 6th. The officers...
The government shouldn't make the people jump through hoops.
The injuries they sustained to protect us.
That's just my position on anything.
They struggle to recover today. The families who continue to mourn...
Because they sure don't make fucking banks jump through hoops.
On that terrible...
When they need $1 trillion bailout.
I was struck yesterday by...
I think the government should provide free banking to us. And then if you want to have private banks, they got to compete with the free banking that the government does. You got to do something to give
one that has sustained me during times of
extra value to your customer if you want to participate in banking.
I decided to stick with love.
Because there's a government alternative. Because everybody should have access to banking. And it should be free of charge.
This trial is not born from hatred.
So U.S. Bank want to charge you fucking something, they better give you something in return.
It's born from
some sort of investment.
Our country.
Because you can go down the road, like it should be at the post office. You can go down to your local post office and you can open an account.
America,
the government will hold your money. You'll earn interest on it.
That I spoke of, Civil Rights Act, so much.
Get money orders, all that good shit.
Those moments because they help.
I think you can already get money orders at the post office, but anyway,
America
you know what I mean.
At its best.
Do all those different banking services that poor people need.
I firmly believe that our certification of the Electoral College
without overdraft
fees, January 7th, our refusal to let our republic,
your card just doesn't go through if you don't have the fucking money,
will go down in history as one of those moments too. And I believe that this body,
banking and internet should be a public utility.
Once again today.
Internet is absolutely a necessity, especially as we see here in the pandemic.
Defending our republic. And the stakes could not be higher.
Send me to the fucking Senate.
Because the cold,
I'll say all that shit and then be like, you guys are all dumb fucks.
Is it what happened on January 6th?
I'll do it.
Again.
Oh, God, I haven't even checked in with that. I would assume the Joy can be replaced.
On that terrible day.
He asked. I mean, I haven't been up on shit in like the last week or so, but I know like Biden asked the board of governors, I think it's called, to resign
every day.
All the Trump appointees.
Senators, this cannot be the beginning.
Because fuck DeJoy.
It can't be the
And seriously, the post office used to run well, though. My only complaint was like sometimes you go in there and it's fucking packed, and there's only 2 people. I think the government should hire more people. I think if you want a job, it should be available to you. You should be able to go work for the government doing something. And it keeps the private sector honest.
Mr. President.
Mr. Raskin.
Senators.
I'm sorry about that.
My daughter Hannah said something to me last night that
they're blaming the pandemic, but it's not. The post office used to be so incredibly efficient.
Our kids have been very moved by all the victims of the violence, the officers and their families. But Hannah told me last night she felt really sorry for the kid.
This might be Raskin bringing it on home for the Democrats.
Before he left home to come and join Trump's actions. Their father had told them that
they've used up about an hour and a half.
And they might never see him again. In other words, he was expecting violence. He might die, as insurrectionists did. And that shook me. Hannah said, how can the
they have 2 hours each.
2
hours for the Democrats and then 2 hours for Trump. I think the Trump people are going to come out and are going to say just a few sentences, boom, act like it's a mic drop. They're going to try to do something that's going to play on Newsmax, OAN, Fox.
I just thought about it.
Because that's all this is to them.
Like a prosecutor, like a manager. I thought, what damning evidence that is.
I have not heard compelling evidence that there shouldn't be trading all the time. And you would think with integration into world markets that there would be trading all the time. And they're like there is trading all the time.
My dear Hannah,
only like certain shit's frozen, isn't it? Like you trade on futures.
If you'll forgive me like a patriot. Someone who just lost her brother and doesn't want to see any other kids in America.
I'm not exactly familiar. You're by far more. I want you to teach me, Scrappy, actually.
Senators, when I say all 3 of my kids are better than me, you know that I am not engaged in idle flattery. Maybe some of you feel the same way about your kids. They're literally better people than me. They've got.
That's what I thought. Like there was still some way to do trading.
They're better than me.
But you would think like there's always a market open in the world.
She saw through the politics of the situation. All the way to the humanity.
It seems like
the morality.
That's just another way that they manipulate the market, to be honest with you.
That was one of the most patriotic things I ever heard anybody say. The children of the insurrectionists, even the violent and dangerous ones, they're our children too. They are Americans and we must take care of them. And
so it's like P2P trades. Personal trades can take place after hours.
And exercise these crimes against our nation, and then we must take care of our people and our children, their hearts and their minds. As Tommy Raskin used to say, it's hard to be human. Many of the Capitol and Metropolitan police officers and guardsmen and women who are beaten up by the mob also have kids. You remember Officer Fanone, who had a heart attack after being tased and roughed up for hours by the mob, and then begged for his life, telling the insurrectionists that he had 4 daughters. And that just about broke my heart all over again. We talked about this for a long time last night. My kids felt terrible that other kids' fathers and mothers were.
I knew it. I knew it had to be some way for them to manipulate it.
Of the United States. Senators, we proved he betrayed his country. We proved he betrayed his Constitution. We proved he betrayed his oath of office. The startling thing to recognize now is that he is even betraying the mob. He told them he would march with them.
All I know about the market is, like, can we put
believe the
Elizabeth
president was
Warren
right there with
in
them,
some
somewhere
sort
in
of
the crowd,
charge of it?
Fighting the fantasy conspiracy to steal.
Let her do whatever she
steal
wants
their
to.
country away from them. They thought they were one big team working together. He told them their great journey together was just beginning, and now there are hundreds of criminal prosecutions getting going all over the country. People getting set to say goodbye to members of their family. And the president who contacted them, solicited them, lured them, invited them, incited them, that president has suddenly gone quiet and dark. Nowhere to be found.
And that is because of influence, right? That is undue influence on the market.
Tell us why this was the patriotic.
That doesn't just happen naturally, and we need to regulate that shit,
Senators,
right? And I don't know fucking shit about it.
This is not about Donald Trump. The country and
that's kind of the problem with the markets is it's
this trial is about who we are.
Of the people paying attention to shit like this, there's only a sliver of people that are actually paying attention to the market as well. And the number of people that are actually invested
We've got a chance here with the truth.
Is relatively small.
Who still believe in the separation of powers? President Trump tried to sideline or run over every other branch of government, thwart the will of the people at the state level, usurp the people's choice.
Usurp. I love that word.
This case is about whether our country demands a peaceful,
don't ever get a chance to use the word usurp.
The sovereignty of the people.
Nobody ever dares to usurp on anything of mine.
Defend us. Not just honor them with medals, as you rightfully did yesterday, but actually back them up against savage, barbaric, insurrectionary violence? Will we restore the honor of our capital and the people who work here?
No.
Will we be a democratic nation that the world looks to for understanding democratic values and practices and constitutional government and the rights of women and men?
No. Have we ever been that?
Condone the President of the United States inciting a violent attack on our chambers, our offices, our staff, and the officers who protect us? When you see the footage of Officer Hodges stuck in the doorway, literally being...
Was that statement ever true?
...by the mob. If government did that to you, that would be torture. And when you see that footage, and he's shouting in agony for his dear life.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't smoking crack.
When the Vice President of the United States escapes a violent mob that's entered
what up, cheese?
Seeking to hang him and calling out traitor, traitor, traitor. And when they shut down the counting of the Electoral College votes, is this the future you imagine for our kids?
I love each and every one of you.
As we've been told, or as Representative Cheney said,
if you're just joining us, we are bringing it on home here. This is probably the last of the closing remarks for the Democrats.
Handle this together as a people, all of us, forgetting.
We're getting ready to hear from Trump's defense team, his all-star defense team.
If we can't handle this, how are we ever going to conquer the other crises of our day? Is this America? Is this what we want to bequeath to our children and our grandchildren? I was never a great Sunday school student.
Oh, God.
Pretty truant most of the time. But one line always stuck with me from the book of Exodus.
He's going to have like a fucking whole mix suit like Solidus, isn't he?
Thou shalt not.
I think he came back. He quit briefly, and then he came back, apparently. I looked that up earlier, and I couldn't find anything on it. But I was reading Heather Cox Richardson, who everybody should read. Everybody should read her on Facebook. Watch her live videos.
Baseball bats and
she said it, and if she said it, then it like I trust it to be true. She's like a presidential historian.
To the Senate and to all of us.
And she gives these like whole
America?
rundowns of the day's events.
here. Senators, that's going to be up to you now. And whatever committees and subcommittees you're on.
Put up with you? We don't put up with you.
To work on. From defense,
we welcome you.
Agriculture to energy to aerospace.
I'll cuddle with you.
This is almost certainly how you will be remembered by history. That might not be fair. It really might not be fair, but none of us can escape the demands of history and destiny right now.
I love to snuggle. I'm a snuggler now.
Will be inextricably intertwined with what we do here and with how you exercise your oath to do impartial justice. Impartial justice. I know and I trust you will do impartial justice, driven by your meticulous attention to the overwhelming.
Can you time me out?
And your love for our country.
Do you have that power?
Dwells in your heart.
Do it. Time me out on my own channel.
The times have found us, said Tom Paine, the namesake of my son.
I can't believe I keep going to other people's channels and getting timed out.
What kind of America will we be? It's now literally in your hands. Godspeed to the Senate of the United States. We reserve any remaining time.
And I wasn't even being mean. Like I was hitting on the guy.
House is reserved 28 minutes.
Man, just off the top of my head, I said they've been used up about an hour and a half of their time. 28 minutes they're yielding back. Here we go. Here's Trump's defense team. I think they only say a couple of sentences. Walk off.
I'm talking, and it will not be so long. And before I start my prepared closing, I really want to clean up a few things from the mess that was the closing of the House managers. I do not want to ruin my closing because I think the ending's pretty good. What they didn't...
Oh, I can't wait for this. Oh, man, I'm going to come myself.
They started off by misstating the law.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're moments away from the vote on the verdict.
What we did today was stipulate to an article.
Because people are dumb and stupid all the time, I think.
But for some reason this morning popped up with it.
He'll probably say something that deserves to be laughed at.
The stipulation was that they can put that in. We did not stipulate to its contents for truthfulness. And they tried to portray that in their closing as the stipulation. The stipulation was read into the record. The proponents of that conversation, the real ones, have denied its content, its veracity.
Do you want me to run down the happenings again? I ran it down earlier.
I'm not going to
everything
talk
that's
much
gone
about
on.
The tortured analysis of our arson laws that started off.
But we're in the home stretch. You're probably like an hour away from the verdict.
With fires.
Okay, cool.
What I do want to talk about...
Just making sure. If anybody does need me to do the rundown, I will just pipe up. I'll say it.
They sent us their evidence.
Do go back to bed.
At 2:32 p.m. by email.
Honestly, I wish I could too. I'd grab a cat and go lay down.
Their evidence. Due process. They used...
I think they did just giggle at him.
That was flat wrong 2 or 3 nights ago with Senator Lee and had to withdraw it.
Why have you been up for 24 hours, Scrappy?
Today. They tried to use evidence that they had never presented in the case.
Are you on some kind of speed?
That is a very desperate attempt by a prosecuting team, 9 of them, by a prosecuting team that knew
I used to stay up
has collapsed
days at a time when I was younger.
Their closing did not mention.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Piece of law.
I'm sorry, that sucks.
They didn't talk about the Constitution.
That's not fun time.
Once, they didn't talk about the First Amendment and its application. They didn't talk about.
I wish I could hug you.
The process and how it applies to this proceeding.
I know the pain you're going through. are we getting Castor now?
Basic rule.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Is that when you close
high.
the case out?
I thought he walked off and another dude
were
walked
admitted in the trial. It's a basic, fundamental principle of due process and fairness, and that was violently breached today on multiple occasions. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why did they resort to those tactics at this moment in time? Senators,
The theatrics! Ripping out that sheet of paper.
What took place here at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th was a grave tragedy.
He knows he doesn't have an argument. That's why he's got to do things like rip out a fucking sheet of paper.
Side of this debate argue that the infiltration of the Capitol was anything less
Did a
than
Pelosi
attack on the home of American democracy.
Today once again solidified why Nancy Pelosi sucks ass, and God, I wish Shahid Buttar had beat her last year.
The entire
It's a shame
team
for all of
have
America.
repeatedly condemned the violence and law-breaking that occurred on January 6th in the strongest possible terms. We've advocated that everybody be found, punished to the maximum extent of the law.
That's why you're here. You're defending one of them, sir.
There was a violent insurrection of the Capitol. On that point, everyone agrees. Based on the explicit text of the House impeachment article, this trial is about whether Mr. Trump willfully engaged in incitement of violence and even insurrection against the United States. And that question they have posed in their article of impeachment has to be set up against the law of this country. No matter how much truly horrifying...
Sir, do you know who makes the laws in this country?
And how much emotion...
Sir, do you know... You're a lawyer. Do you know who makes the laws in this country?
That does not
Sir,
change the
sir.
fact that Mr. Trump is innocent of the charges against him. Despite all of the video played, at no point in their presentation did you hear the House managers play a single example of Mr. Trump urging anyone to engage in violence of any kind. At no point did you hear
Yeah, we did.
anything that could
Yeah, we did.
possibly
Yeah, we did.
be construed as Mr. Trump encouraging or sanctioning
Yeah, we did.
insurrection.
Yeah, we
Senators,
yeah,
you
we
cannot hear
did.
those tapes because they do not exist. Because the act
No,
of
we
incitement
saw him,
never
dude.
happened. He engaged in no language of incitement whatsoever on January 6th or any other day following the election.
Wrong.
No unbiased person honestly reviewing the transcript of Mr.
He
Trump.
did spell it out, though. That's what I'm saying. He absolutely spelled it out. This dude just straightened up saying, like, the sky isn't blue.
The protest outside the Capitol.
And he's not even making, like, the technical argument, like, well, technically the sky's not a color. You're just seeing the refraction of the air.
His
Like,
entire
you know what I mean? He's not making one of those fucking
joint
arguments.
session should continue. He spent nearly the entire
He's just like, the sky's red.
He believes the senators and members of Congress should vote on the matter.
I'm sorry, the sky's green. Because it is red sometimes.
The words, the Supreme
That
Court
Doppler
ruled
effect.
in Brandenburg that there is a very clear standard for incitement. In short, you have to look at the words themselves.
And he keeps bringing up Brandenburg like we went through the 3 points and like, yes, 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 okay, boom.
Call for lawlessness or violence. Whether the speech, you have to determine whether the speech was intended to
Explicitly or implicitly calls for violence. He implicitly called for violence. He explicitly called for violence.
itself. They fail on all 3 prongs. The false and defamatory claim that Mr. Trump gave a speech encouraging his supporters to go attack the Capitol has been repeated so often.
March to the Capitol, I'll go with you.
Facts that the American the Americans listening at home,
they had a bullhorn and were reading off his tweets.
Furthermore, some of the people in this room followed Mr. Trump's statements and tweets in the weeks leading up to January 6th very closely. We know that he was not trying to foment an insurrection during the time.
Wrong! No! Wrong!
Washington, D.C. behaved in a fashion consistent with the belief that violence was being advocated for. Mr. Trump did not spend the weeks prior to January 6th inciting violence. He spent those weeks pursuing his election challenge through the court system and other legal procedures exactly as the Constitution and the Congress prescribe. To believe, based on the evidence you have seen, that Mr. Trump actually wanted and indeed willfully incited an armed insurrection to overthrow the U.S. government would be absurd. The gathering,
yeah, I'm cool with it.
January
I'm
6th
down.
Was supposed to be an entirely peaceful event. Thousands and thousands of people, including Mr. Trump, showed up that day with that intention. A small percentage, a small fraction of those people then engaged in truly horrible behavior.
No. Those
actors.
No. It was hundreds. We saw hundreds.
And acted even
the hundreds of people.
Was completed, to which is the basis of the article of impeachment. It was pre-planned and premeditated by fringe.
Yes. Based on the lie that Trump has spent years cultivating. Said it in 2016.
The House manager's false narrative is a brazenly dishonest attempt to smear, to cancel constitutional cancel culture, their number one political opponent, taking neutral statements, commonplace political rhetoric, removing words and facts from context, and ascribing to them the most sinister and malevolent intentions possible. Their story was based not on evidence, but on the sheer personal and political animus. The flimsy theory of incitement.
You did it because Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad.
Be used to impeach, indict.
Hello, Rose. What's going on?
Countless other political leaders. Many.
Thank you for joining us.
Other parties have.
This is the closing arguments.
Incendiary and dangerous rhetoric.
In the Senate trial of Donald J. Trump.
I'm not going to replay the words. You all saw the evidence. I'm not going to.
We're moments away from the vote, so you came at just the right time.
People, another platform, any more view from the American people as to what they did.
This is
canceled.
Former President Trump's attorney. He has 2 hours, but it's pretty much
months prior to January 6th attacking.
He's already said that he's not going to take that long.
Most cherished institutions and traditions. They didn't just question the integrity of one election.
Well, hopefully I'll give you some politics with a comedic flair.
From our founding fathers.
I'm funny, I cuss a lot, and I'm really fucking stoned.
Declaration of Independence, law enforcement officers, and
I did news reporting for years.
They said that our society was rooted in hatred.
But I like making fun of people and calling them dumb fucks.
Quote,
so here we are.
As you heard yesterday, throughout the summer, Democrat leaders...
And this guy's a real dumb fuck.
...and Vice President repeatedly made comments that provided moral comfort to mobs attacking police officers.
Well, we're not going to be here that long, hopefully.
At that time, many officers across the country were injured. As we all know, 2 sheriff's deputies in Los Angeles were ambushed.
Yeah. So, this dude actually represented a client against Trump one time.
Have been in danger. Senators from Maine to Kentucky and most points in between have been harassed.
But he's a lot more docile than he was earlier in the day.
Last August, a menacing left.
This morning, he must have just had his coffee and was riding high because he's pounding on his podium.
They had to be rescued.
He's wagging his finger at everybody. It was great.
Months. Our federal courthouse in Portland was
Somebody
placed
gave him a
under
half a
siege
Xanax or
by
something when they went on
anarchists
recess.
who attacked law enforcement.
Hold on, man. You're not in the zone.
And repeatedly and tried to set
We got to
fire
dial
to
you back about 15%.
Speaker Pelosi did not call the violent siege of the federal building an insurrection. She called the federal agents protecting the courthouse.
So now he's going to his Pee Wee Herman defense. I know you are, but what am I?
Besieged by mobs that threw bricks, rocks, and
We're not the insurrectionists. The Democrats are the insurrectionists.
Set fire.
It's the violent
to historic
BLM and
structure
Antifa.
And breached a security fence to infiltrate the Treasury grounds. When my client's administration sent in the National Guard to secure the nation's capital city amidst the violence, Democrat leaders demanded that the forces be withdrawn. The Washington, D.C. mayor said the presence of the National Guard was an affront to the safety of the district. It must be fully investigated whether political leadership here in Washington, D.C. took an inadequate and irresponsible forced posture on January 6th because of their...
It's all been a clusterfuck. The Democrats overall did a pretty good job with their presentation. I'm trying to give you like impartial input here.
The administration acted properly by taking action.
Trump's lawyers are just chuckle fucks. They've been entertaining.
Security perimeter and prevent the White House from potentially being overrun. The House managers argued this week that an alleged...
And then plus, I really like the dudes. I like saying Vanderveen.
...statement from Mr. Trump on January 6th was somehow evidence that he committed incitement or supported the violence.
And I love that one of his main arguments has been the Brandenburg versus Ohio, which is the lawless imminent action decision.
To condemn the extremism
so he's comparing Trump to a KKK
businesses were being
leader by doing that. I love it.
As neighborhoods were being burned.
Well, this Klansman didn't get charged in this case. I mean, it's citing legal precedent, but
to tell their violent supporters to stand down. Some even suggested that the mob's actions were justified. Vice President Harris literally urged her followers to donate money to a...
So yeah, still with the Pee Wee Herman defense. I know you are, but what am I?
Extreme rioters so that they could get out.
It was really the Antifas.
Do it over and over again. She later said that those folks were not going to let up and that they should not. All of this was far closer to the actual definition of incitement than anything President Trump...
All of that was closer to incitement than the one actual insurrection that the country has faced in fucking, 100 years?
It's a hypocrisy. It's a hypocrisy.
Really?
That the House managers have laid at the feet of this.
They really have done all they can, Skippy.
The House managers suggested...
Other than like delaying and letting the news cycle play out on Sunday, make the Republicans go on the Sunday show. I really think that would have been a winning strategy.
Democrats' behavior...
I think public opinion by Monday morning...
highly relevant as precedent.
Other than Sabina Trump, that's another. There's room. I gave them a B+, solid A-, something like that. They had room for improvement. They had some trump cards they could have played. No pun intended. Okay, pun intended. That they could have played, and they didn't actually
took pictures of themselves,
throw those down on the table.
On social media. To some, it seems,
if I was the person giving Democrats advice, or at least media advice, communications advice,
rioting, assaulting police, and vandalizing historic...
I would have definitely told them to put their balls on the table.
In the United States.
Called their bluff, but as we know, Cassidy informed us
that idea.
Nancy Pelosi was furious at the prospect that she might have to testify. So they came up with this stupid fucking agreement.
It was not Mr. Trump.
So that the Republicans couldn't call 300-something witnesses.
The Republican Party that
one of which being Nancy Pelosi.
Immediately prior to the Capitol assault, giving rhetorical aid and comfort to mobs.
And if I had to bet, the reasoning on that
celebrating
would have been like, okay, if we let this drag out like that, the American people are going to turn on us because they're not going to want to drag the trial out that long.
Let me be very clear. There can be no excuse for the depraved act.
I don't know exactly what the language of the resolution was. I don't know why they couldn't have limited the number of people that they could call. If the Democrats are only going to call one person, why not let the Republicans call one person? That seems fair. Equal amount of, pass some resolution that says an equal amount of time. I don't know, but that's one of those things where like,
and consequences.
to give
must ask ourselves
the best advice, I would have to be there with like the parliamentarian telling me exactly what the rules are.
I submit.
I'm disappointed in Vanderbeek that he hasn't been more animated this time around.
And media personalities.
But he said he's got something special for us for his closing at the end.
Glorifying civil unrest and condemning the reasonable law enforcement measures that are required to quell violence.
That's another, like, why wouldn't you want Pelosi? You bring up the Pence having to be the one to call the National Guard. It wasn't just Pence. It was Pence, Pelosi, Schumer, McCarthy.
Law enforcement deserves our respect and support.
And McConnell.
That has been Mr. Trump's position from the
So why wouldn't Pelosi, we need Pelosi on the stand to testify about that?
Who is ultimately responsible for such?
Put her on the stand about that. Let the Republicans ask her about when she knew.
House Democrats want two different standards, one for themselves and one for their political opposition.
At first, it looked like the Republicans were going to vote to convict, so I'm sure they thought it was a slam dunk case that was going to be short.
First Amendment.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Vanderbeek.
Egregious violation.
He did say it was going to be short.
Constitutional rights. Since he uttered not a single word encouraging violence.
But also, he has 2 hours, so him only going 20 or 30 minutes is short.
Political speech. And
so I was definitely wrong. My prediction was that he was going to come out and only say a line or two and walk off. That,
with the potential to do
me as a communications expert, if I had his ear, that's what I would have told him to do.
And the separation.
And you will own social media. You won't, because like it doesn't matter in the course of the trial. You're not here to make a fucking argument.
Yesterday we played you a video of countless Democrats.
So that the coming out and just saying a few lines, and like I could come up with lines if I had some time to write them out. Yeah, the nuclear football was with Pence.
But because we know you should.
That's why they didn't even bring that up. Democrats left off a lot of things.
But recognize the hypocrisy.
But I also don't know the reasoning why they left those things off. I think Scrappy might have been the one that brought up like ongoing investigations, why they wouldn't want to talk about Trump and his interference.
Democrats had invented an entirely new legal standard. In fact, they've created a new legal theory.
Yeah, classified stuff, shit like that.
The Raskin Doctrine.
The Raskin Doctrine
is based on nothing more than determining protected speech based on the party label next to your name. Regardless of what you have heard or what you have seen from the House managers, if you pay close attention, you will see that any speech made by Democrat elected
officials. See, I don't want to call him a dumb fuck. He's a lawyer. Apparently, he's of some note if he's defending the former president.
The creation of the
Raskin boy, does he seem like a dumb
actually
fuck.
Reveals the weakness of the House manager's case. Elected officials, and we reviewed this in depth yesterday, under Supreme Court precedent, Wood and Bond, and by the way, Bond didn't burn his draft card. He actually still had it. It was part of his defense. But in Bond and in Wood, the court clearly directed all to know that elected officials hold the highest.
And this isn't the lawyer that meanders.
And I remind you why.
This is the one that's kind of on point.
You all need to be free.
It's Castor, the other one that just like blah, 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 rambles on about shit.
Because your discussion is about how our lives are going to go.
Scrappy, make a good case. I defended myself in civil court once.
By any political.
I feel like I could have done it in criminal court when I was 19 too.
The majority.
I pretty much told the lawyer what to say. But like I was facing like 5 to 10. So
because they know they
for marijuana. Don't think I did anything wrong. It was like second offense pot, second offense paraphernalia. They were both felonies.
For more than half a century.
Mine wasn't a public defender. Like my parents hired a lawyer for me.
Official has no First Amendment rights. It's the complete opposite of the law.
But he came into the pretrial conference. We sat down.
That is wrong.
Well, no, it's not really. Yeah, it's okay. So, goddamn.
Test of
I was charged with fleeing and evading,
as elucidated,
reckless driving, second offense marijuana possession, second offense paraphernalia.
That Mr. Trump's words were
the guy that was with me was only charged with like possession, and he pled out to it. So I just told the lawyer, I'm like, my friend already pled out to it. He'll say everything was his.
The violence was pre-planned.
So that got me out off of the pot charges.
A group of lawless actors who must be prosecuted to the fullest.
I was parked when the cop pulled up. Like they didn't even have their lights on until I was already parked.
Into motion. What was the?
So I couldn't be fleeing and evading, right? But I was fleeing.
No ability and no evidence to satisfy the existing constitution.
I had a head start on them. I knew, like they were gonna pull me over for a speeding ticket, and I'm from the mountains, so you just like fucking.
This is not.
You cut up a mountain, you take a couple hollers, and then the cop has no clue where the fuck you are.
Scary.
But I was out because I'm 19 years old.
A precedent would be set.
And it is like flat fucking, like I'm out in western fucking Kentucky, flat farm country. You can see for miles and miles and miles. So I just take the next road and I'm like, oh shit.
Will Congress?
there's no getting out of this. So I just pulled over, and I'm like laughing about it as they come to the window. They didn't find it funny. They did not find it funny at all.
This would allow Congress to use the awesome impeachment power as a weapon to impeach their fellow colleagues in the opposing party. This is not a precedent that this Senate can set here today. If the Senate endorses the House Democrats...
Yeah, I actually got off easier than my friend who was charged with like just a misdemeanor.
Both parties. Literally
released from jail without like having to post bail or anything. He had to do like 10 hours of community service. I ended up like pleading guilty to speeding and careless driving. It was like a fucking like $75 fine or some shit.
This has been perhaps the most unfair and flagrantly unconstitutional proceeding in the history of the United States Senate.
And did the cops catch you?
For the first time in history, Congress.
I think very creative. You're in here. Like, didn't you volunteer at a
nowhere in the Constitution is the power
like an animal shelter? Like, I think you really enjoyed playing with the dogs and shit. Like,
no business holding.
If he was going to spend 10 hours,
let alone
doing community service, like he picked a good one.
Fundamental civil rights. There was mention of a January exception.
Yeah, but still, because they charged it as felony evading, you had to put up with some fucking bullshit you shouldn't have had to pull it up with.
Of the House manager,
you probably had to bond out and shit.
By delaying. They sat on the article.
And don't even get me started on the
while he was still in office, they really
bail, bonds, all that fucking, that is a scam. I cannot believe if you've had any interaction with that system.
It's a red herring. It's nonsense.
Because my first 2 arrests were in Kentucky for pot. And Kentucky doesn't have like private bail bondsmen.
January.
The first time I ever interacted, like I got arrested for driving on a suspended license that was suspended for no insurance. Years and years later in Tennessee.
House Democrats,
and holy shit, they got that private bail bondsman system, and that is it's a rip.
Every tradition, norm, and standard of due process. In a way, I've never, ever.
Oh, do some places not let you do like an animal shelter?
Mr. Trump.
That would be my pick if I wanted to do community. Like, community service has to be like picking up trash on the side of the road.
Given no opportunity to question its propriety. He was given no chance to engage in fact-finding. Much of what was introduced.
I guess Bree Green isn't in here because I want to say he did an animal shelter.
Third-hand reporting.
But still, like, I got off a lot easier. I just had to pay some money and move on.
Based on anonymous sources whose identities.
Well, and the paying for the lawyer was really expensive. That was the worst part of all that.
They manufactured and doctored evidence.
And we do that to kids far too quickly. Me at 19 years old, that.
We had.
If I wasn't middle class or working class poor, whatever the fuck you want to call it,
go back and take a really close look at the stuff.
There's no way I could have dug myself out of that hole, like without the help of my parents.
Brandon, we all worked hard and looked at the evidence. 4 volumes of books in little tiny print.
Yeah, like, if I couldn't afford a lawyer, if I'd had a public defender.
14 hours to
if I wasn't smart to the law and like knew what I was like knew the things to say,
fabricating,
like there was a lot of cards that had to fall the right way for that to be for me to overcome it the way I did. I understand my privilege.
And when we looked closely, we found that the date was wrong.
Any one little thing being different, and my life could have been absolutely. I wouldn't be sitting here right now doing this.
They never addressed that in their closing.
Getting ready to get off here and use my brand new grill to. We got a countertop grill. I'm gonna cook a steak on tonight.
As though we're all right.
Life's pretty good, but it could have been a lot fucking different, and that's why I want to fight.
United States of America.
So that people don't have to go through that bullshit.
Fraud. Flat out. Fraud.
I'm sad this guy isn't more upbeat this time.
That I practice in, there are very harsh repercussions for what they pulled in this trial.
His mannerisms are fantastic.
As we've shown, the House.
He wore himself out earlier today, didn't he?
Representations of tweets. Manipulating videos and introducing into the record completely discredited lies such as.
In case anyone wasn't with us earlier in the week, the only people manipulating videos was the defense.
House managers have said and shown you would be inadmissible in any respectable court of law.
And they were cartoonishly edited.
They were telling a political tale, a fable, and a patently false one at that.
He was so entertaining earlier, though.
And rushed the impeachment because they know that a fair trial would reveal Mr. Trump's innocence.
He went out and smoked a joint.
The more actual evidence that comes out, the clearer.
That's slick. They just passed a note.
And premeditated.
He didn't miss a word. That's fucking awesome.
Because their case is so weak,
I like him more and more.
In a kitchen sink approach to the supposedly single article of impeachment. They allege that Mr. Trump incited the January 6th violence. They allege that he abused power.
Yeah, there's not really an allege to it. We know it. We know it is a fact.
Undermine the results of the 2020 election, and they allege that he gravely and endangered the democratic system by interfering with the peaceful transition of power. At least 3 things.
And that is, for those of you that might not have been with us all week,
under the
Republicans have been coaching him. Lindsey Graham,
must have been
Mike Lee,
in a separate article of impeachment.
Josh Hawley.
Not remind this chamber that.
No, not Josh Hawley. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz.
Rules of
Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, and Lindsey Graham have been giving this dude pointers all week.
Trials provides, in pertinent part, that an article of impeachment shall not be divisible thereon.
And Van der Veen didn't speak the first day on Tuesday.
Why is that? Because the article...
He is indeed arguing. He is telling you that what you saw with your own eyes is not true.
To know if two-thirds...
That black is white, that up is down.
Article.
The sky is green.
As the basis for a vote to convict. Based on this alone, the Senate must vote to acquit Mr. Trump. You got to at least obey your own rules. If it's not the
I can't believe he's still going to get my fucking tax dollars.
In short, this
would it have been more effective if I was up there like, don't let this motherfucker have our tax dollars?
Spectacle has been nothing but the unhinged pursuit of
he helped do it
against Mr. Trump by the opposition.
I knew there was never a doubt in my mind in 2017 on January 2nd
in his first year.
December 1st of 2016, I would have told you, whenever a new president is elected, he will not attend that inauguration. That is never going to happen. Ever.
His fourth year. And now
I knew that he would act exactly like he did the entire time.
When he is a private citizen out of office.
Everybody saw it coming. Everybody said he wasn't going to fucking leave. I don't want to say like I had some fucking revelation. I'm just listening to the smart people that I listen to.
Desire of the last 5 years.
Everybody saw it coming. There was no way he was going to leave office willingly.
Arena, my client. Since
honest to God, thought I was going to have to watch them drag him out, and I think he really did kind of get smacked in the nose after the insurrection.
Silence and demonize his supporters.
I don't think we would have had an election if it had been if he had won re-election. I don't think there would have been an election in 2024.
One of the congressmen on the screen.
We would have never made it to 2024. This country would have been over with.
That's the fear.
Because you saw, like, it was a shoestring of an administration that was even left.
When you deliberate over your decision,
he never said that he would accept the results of the election unless it was for him. If he lost, it was fraud the whole fucking time.
First is jurisdiction. There is no jurisdiction. And if you believe that, you still get to say it.
I mean, he says he's got something special for the end here. Let's see if he's wrapping it up.
It had to be divisible. Each allegation had to be singularly set out in front of you so it could be voted on and to see if 2/3 of you think that they proved that case or not. They didn't do that. You got to ask yourself why. They know the Senate rules. They got them, and so did I. Why'd they do it? Because they hadn't investigated, first of all. But also,
what is there to investigate?
All of this, they couldn't do it. So if they threw as much in as they could.
Oh, you think he's going to snap the pen or something? Like the pen's going to go all over him? That would be awesome.
As they could. Then maybe 2/3 of you would fall for it.
God,
that's why the rules don't allow it.
I'd give a testicle to see that happen right now.
Due process.
And I like my balls.
That subject. It's a really good reason for all of you in this chamber.
I believe they keep making, is it like Jaden X or Jaden
to read
Jaden N or whatever the fuck was the kid that was in there, like
to this proceeding.
Multiple Antifa organizations have said, "Hey, this dude's the plant."
Due process,
and kicked him out.
Way over the top, shocking, and you must not stand for it.
But he had some of the best footage.
First Amendment.
And like some of the most comprehensive footage because he was filming the entire time.
No words of incitement.
And I think it's his footage that they were able to
tell you which ground
base all the other footage off of in order to put it in like chronological order. That ProPublica thing is amazing.
Senators Do not let House Democrats take this manacle crusade any further. The Senate does not have to go down this dark path of enmity and division. You do not have to indulge the impeachment.
You would have to be more specific than that. What new video evidence are you referring to? I've watched virtually every second of this trial.
Constitutional political theater to an end.
And beyond that, I just mentioned the ProPublica compilation. I've spent quite a bit of time watching the ProPublica compilation.
This nation, the pandemic, our economy, racial inequality, economic.
Why does everybody? Why you want to come up in here and throw some links, man? We're watching impeachment
and working on for all of us in America. All of us.
We've watched the entire trial. That's what I'm saying.
You can protect due process, and you can allow America's healing to begin. I urge the Senate to acquit and vindicate the Constitution of this great republic. Thank you.
He said he had something special for the end.
Mr. President.
This is like a wet fucking fart.
I understand, I'm told we have around 27 minutes, but I will return all of that, but perhaps 5 back to you. There's just a few things that I need to address, and so in an extraordinary and perhaps unprecedented act of self-restraint on my part, I will resist the opportunity to rebut every single false and illogical thing that you just heard, and I am going to be able to return to you, perhaps 22 or 23 minutes. Few points. One, we have definitely made some progress in the last few days, because a few days ago, the president's team, although I think it was perhaps a member who has since left the team, lectured us that this was not...
Oh, so Joan did quit.
And said that the impeachment managers were outrageous in using the word insurrection. Today, counsel in his closing...
But he's also Orthodox Jew, so he wouldn't be there today.
And he denounced it. And I would certainly love to see President Trump also call it a violent insurrection and denounce it too. And I believe, although I don't have a verbatim text, that counsel called for long sentences for the people who were involved. Again, I would love to hear that come from the president as well.
I would love to see that happen to the former president as well.
The developed body of law that the Senate has for impeaching and convicting a president who incites violent insurrection against the Congress and the government of the United States. Well, I suppose that's true because
in the democratic process.
Any other president of the United States, from George Washington to John Adams to Thomas Jefferson to James Madison to James Monroe to Abraham Lincoln to Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush to Barack Obama, to incite a violent insurrection against the Union.
I'm kind of curious, but also like we're doing something.
And so they think that that somehow is a mark in their favor. That's a score for them. That this Senate has to be the first one to define incitement of violent insurrection.
In order to be able to send me links, you got to earn like a reputation in here.
Puts it on me. He says, inciting a
president. I know you're not fucking with me.
Committing incitement to violent
stupid
insurrection
shit
against the Union is the new Raskin doctrine. We've tried to convince him that there are well-known principles and elements of incitement which we have talked to you about ad nauseum, and that this is an intrinsically, inherently fact-based judgment.
See, that's fucking with me. The right is trying to have this video deleted.
Violent insurrection.
Like that's no.
And I take it as an honor. Most law professors never even get a doctrine named after them. So I will accept that. And finally, the counsel goes.
This dude's a right winger trying to troll me.
Because I think in the final analysis, their best argument,
I can smell it on him.
It is really about the First Amendment. But remember, they keep talking about stifling.
Right-wingers are
President Trump's
morons.
speech. Someone tell me when his speech has ever been stifled. He says exactly
16 times is exactly correct. If they're trying to delete this video off the internet and you want me to see it, I will see it by the end of the day. So don't you worry your pretty little head.
Remember, they referred yesterday to interference with his liberty, which I found absolutely bizarre, because everybody knows that
that's exactly what a dumb fuck right-winger would say. I hate Trump.
On these charges, it is a
orange man bad.
To protect all of us, to protect the entire country, our children, our Constitution, our future. That's what impeachment, trial, conviction are all about. Julian Bond. See, I knew Julian Bond, so forgive me. Most people say, don't even respond to this stuff. I got to respond to this, okay?
He's personal with everybody.
Was a civil rights activist who decided to go into politics, like the people in this room, like all of us who are in politics. And they tried to keep him out. He was a member of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which really launched the voting rights movement in America. There's a great story that Bob Moses tells in his book called Radical Equations about, he was a graduate student in mathematics at Harvard, and he went down to Mississippi. You know why? Because he saw a picture in the New York Times.
Sure thing, pal.
Of the.
I don't think any of us will disagree with you on
college students.
Trump needing to go to jail.
North Carolina AT&T, and he saw a picture of them on the cover of the New York Times, and they were sitting in at a lunch counter, and he looked at the picture and he said, "They looked the way that I felt." They looked the way that I felt, and he said,
hand him over to The Hague. I'm happy with that.
And they launched the voting rights movement. That's where the phrase "one person, one vote" comes from. It was not invented by the Supreme Court. They would go door to door to try to register people to vote. But anyway, Julian Bond was part of that movement. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
What does your name mean, Head Boosa?
It was the end, and it was the means, nonviolence. And he ran
Where'd you get your name from?
He ran for the state legislature in Georgia.
And why are you Head Boosa 2? Who's Head Boosa 1?
Like our great, late, beloved colleague, John Lewis, who's in our hearts today. And when he got elected, they wanted to try to keep him from being sworn in.
I'm not the only one.
And so?
Asking these questions in their head.
The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee is taking a position against the Vietnam War. You're a member of SNCC. We're not going to take a position against the Vietnam War.
I see. Okay.
In its wisdom said you cannot prevent someone from swearing an oath to become a member of a legislative body.
So who's number one?
That they took, or a group they were part of, took.
Head Bussa.
They got sworn in. That's the exact
Head
opposite of
Bussa.
Donald Trump. He got elected to office. He swore an oath
Did I get it right that time?
to the Constitution, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. He served as president for 4 years, right up until the end, when he wanted to exercise his rights under the imaginary January exception, and he incited a violent mob and insurrection to come up here, and we all know what happened. He is being impeached and convicted for violating his oath of office that he took. He's not being prevented from taking his oath in the first place. The First Amendment's on our side. He tried to overturn.
Moments away, you came back just in time.
Of the people. He lost that election by more than 7 million votes.
Probably within the hour.
Counsel for the president could not bring themselves to.
How long until the Senate is convicted? Within the hour.
Question from the distinguished gentleman from Vermont. He refused to answer that. He said it was irrelevant. Despite all of the evidence you've heard about the big lie and how that set the stage for his incitement of the insurrectionary violence.
The vote could actually be a lot quicker. The House always takes fucking forever.
Our side. We are defending the Bill of Rights. We are defending the constitutional
Senate will be a roll call vote.
We're defending the separation of powers. We're defending the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House against a president who acted no better than a marauder and a member of that mob by inciting those people to come here. And in many ways, he was worse.
It's worse than that. He was far worse than a marauder. That's my only problem with the Democrats' presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Because I don't think their language has been strong enough.
Thank you, Mr. Raskin.
Mr. President.
The majority leader is recognized.
Mr. President, the Senate
Here we go.
is now ready to vote on the article of impeachment. And after that is done, we will adjourn the court of impeachment.
He absolutely did try to become a
The
dictator.
clerk will read the article of impeachment.
Yes, that is correct. No more evidence. Shall we pack a bong for this? Everyone in agreement? Ashley Babbitt got shot in the neck. She was a whack job from California, I do believe. You can find video of her saying some hilarious shit as she's driving down the road on her way to the Capitol.
Incitement of an insurrection.
Saying exactly why she's going upset about Trump.
The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment, and that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Further, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution prohibits any person who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States.
I don't know what that means. You can't find her autopsy anywhere.
In his conduct while President of the United States and in violation of his
It is probably part of an active federal investigation at this time and would not be released to the public without a FOIA request.
And, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be
It's a
faithfully
weird thing to ask.
Donald John Trump engaged in high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the government of the United States.
Have you tried Googling Ashley Babbitt autopsy?
2021, pursuant to the 12th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States.
It's kind of weird that you say you can't find her autopsy anywhere, but you didn't even fucking know her name.
At the United States Capitol for a joint session of Congress to count
You
the
know?
votes of the Electoral College. In the months preceding the joint session, President Trump repeatedly issued false statements.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will be available sooner than later.
Widespread fraud,
if it's not already available.
accepted by the American
It's a weird thing for you
people
to ask.
or certified by state or federal officials. Shortly before the joint session commenced, President
But if
Trump
it is not available, that's the reason why.
at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. There he reiterated false claims that we won this election and we won it by a landslide.
You didn't even know who
He
she
also
was.
willfully made statements that in context encouraged and foreseeably resulted in.
So currently
lawless
we
action
are
of
reading the
Capitol,
article
such
of
as,
impeachment.
If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Thus incited by President Trump, members of the crowd he had addressed in an attempt.
You guys want to take bets on what the vote's going to be?
Interfere with the joint session's solemn constitutional duty.
It really seems like it's going to be about 5 Republicans.
Presidential election unlawfully breached and vandalized the Capitol, injured and killed law enforcement.
I can tell you for certain she died because I've watched it. I've watched it from multiple angles, multiple times.
Deadly, destructive, and seditious acts. President Trump's conduct on January 6, 2021, followed his prior efforts to
55-54 is the most likely scenario.
2020 presidential election.
It's possible they pick up 1 or 2 Republicans. I think it's more likely that they lose a Republican.
Urged the Secretary of State
Honestly.
of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, to find enough votes to overturn the Georgia presidential election results and threatened security Raffensperger if he failed to do so. In all this, President Trump gravely endangered the security
I didn't see the neck hole video.
institutions of government. He threatened the integrity of the democratic system.
You don't think we like? Here's the thing, man. You don't think so, but yet I have video evidence because I stream every fucking day. Almost. I'm usually off on weekends. Usually at this moment right now, I'd be sipping coffee, having just woke up on my couch in my robe and my boxers.
Has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with
multiple cats on me.
Donald John Trump thus warrants impeachment and trial.
I'm not going to show you any video other than impeachment today.
And enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States.
So, they're reading the article of impeachment.
Should be put to answer the accusations as set forth in this article, and that such proceedings, examinations...
You're welcome to go to ProPublica.
Thereupon had...
Just Google ProPublica Capitol. And it has every single video from that day in chronological order.
Each senator, when his or her name is called, will stand in his or her place.
Here we go. Here's the roll call vote.
Guilty or not guilty as required
as
by
we prepare to acquit Donald Trump a second time.
impeachment. Article 1.
He was guilty as fuck both times.
Regarding the vote required for conviction on impeachment.
They could have impeached him 7, 8, 9, 10 more times.
Shall be convicted without the concurrence of two.
They probably should have impeached him 10, 7, 8, 9, 10 more times.
The question is on the article of impeachment. Senators, how say you? Is the respondent Donald John Trump guilty or not guilty? A roll call vote is required, and the clerk will
Shit, dude. How'd you have such perfect timing?
Ms. Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin, guilty.
Yes, Scrappy is not your secretary.
Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Barrasso, not guilty.
Because I know you haven't been listening because I called out your name not that long ago.
Mrs. Blackburn. Mrs. Blackburn, not guilty. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal, guilty. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Blunt, not guilty. Mr. Booker.
This is a shame.
Mr. Booker, guilty. Mr. Bozeman. Mr. Bozeman, not guilty. Mr. Braun.
Oh, I know all about that rabbit hole.
Mr. Braun.
But how did, like, you picked, like, the perfect time to come back, though.
Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, guilty.
Unfortunately, Trump's lawyers weren't as entertaining as they had been.
Mr. Burr, guilty. Ms. Cantwell. Ms. Cantwell.
Is that why he walks so funny? Is that why he stands like he's a fucking mantar?
Mrs. Capito, not guilty. Mr. Cardin.
It's the result of having all the Republicans up his ass?
Mr. Cardin, guilty. Mr. Carper. Mr. Carper, guilty. Mr. Casey. Mr. Casey, guilty. Mr. Cassidy. Mr. Cassidy, guilty. Ms. Collins. Ms. Collins, guilty. Mr. Coons. Mr. Coons, guilty. Mr. Cornyn. Mr.
Of course, Cornyn votes not guilty.
Not guilty. Ms. Cortez Masto. Ms. Cortez Masto, guilty. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Cotton, not guilty.
Cassidy switched his vote. He was the one that joined with the Republicans.
Not guilty.
To make it 56.
Mr. Crapo.
Yeah, Louisiana, the historically most corrupt state in the union, yes.
Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz, not guilty. Mr. Daines. Mr. Daines, not guilty. Ms. Duckworth. Ms. Duckworth, guilty.
I fell asleep watching some,
Mr. Durbin, guilty.
I think it was
Ms. Ernst.
WCW 1990.
Ms. Ernst,
I was
not
watching
guilty.
some Doom matches.
Mrs. Feinstein. Mrs.
Cornyn and Cruz
Feinstein.
both need to be expelled. Holly as well.
Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Fisher, not guilty. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mrs. Gillibrand, guilty.
So it looks like the vote's going to be 56,
Graham.
45, 44.
Mr. Graham, not guilty. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Grassley.
Oh, Grassley wanted to make sure he yelled that.
Mr. Haggerty. Mr. Haggerty, not guilty.
I wouldn't doubt that
Ms. Hassan.
Julian Castro is a senator from Texas before
Mr.
the end of this
Hawley.
decade.
Mr. Hawley, not
I don't know about that, sir. I woke up with
Heinrich.
Black Scorpion
Heinrich,
versus Sting in a
guilty.
cage, and that was
Mr. Hickenlooper.
that was a mess.
Mr. Hickenlooper, guilty. Ms. Hirono. Ms. Hirono, guilty. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Hoven, not guilty. Mrs. Hyde-Smith.
Not guilty.
Mrs. Hyde-Smith, not guilty. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Inhofe, not guilty. Mr. Johnson.
This is a
Mr.
travesty
Johnson,
what we're
not
witnessing.
guilty. Mr. Kane. Mr. Kane, guilty. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly, guilty. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy.
And I can't believe that the Democrats
Mr.
missed the
King.
opportunity to draw this out.
Mr. King, guilty. Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Klobuchar, guilty. Mr. Langford. Mr. Langford, not guilty. Mr. Leahy.
Guilty.
Mr. Leahy, guilty. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, not guilty. Mr. Lujan. Mr. Lujan, guilty. Ms. Lummis. Ms. Lummis, not guilty.
The freaking shop
Mr.
ship
Manchin.
short ship.
Mr. Manchin, guilty.
Try to say that 5 times fast. The freaking shop ships
Mr. Markey,
shirts
guilty.
anywhere.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall, not guilty. Mr. McConnell.
Go get you a right wingers and moron shirt.
Mr. McConnell, not guilty. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Menendez, guilty. Mr. Merkley. Mr. Merkley, guilty. Mr. Moran. Mr. Moran, not guilty.
Might as well get a little more high.
Ms. Murkowski, guilty. Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, guilty. Mrs. Murray. Mrs. Murray, guilty. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Ossoff, guilty. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Padilla, guilty. Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, not guilty. Mr. Peters. Mr. Peters, guilty. Mr. Portman. Mr. Portman, not guilty. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, guilty. Mr. Risch. Mr. Risch, not guilty. Mr. Romney. Mr. Romney, guilty. Ms. Rosen. Ms. Rosen, guilty. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Rounds, not guilty. Mr. Rubio.
So I think that officially we've
Mr. Rubio, not guilty.
hit the
Mr.
threshold.
Sanders.
It's impossible. He's acquitted.
Mr. Sanders, guilty. Mr. Sass. Mr. Sass.
As if we didn't know that.
Mr. Schatz.
Get higher, you say?
Mr. Schatz, guilty. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Schumer, guilty. Mr. Scott of Florida. Mr. Scott of Florida, not guilty. Mr. Scott of South Carolina. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, not guilty. Mrs. Shaheen. Mrs. Shaheen, guilty. Mr. Shelby.
Can you take me higher, bro?
Mr. Shelby, not guilty. Ms. Sinema. Ms. Sinema, guilty. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith, guilty. Ms. Stabenow. Ms. Stabenow, guilty. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, not guilty. Mr. Tester. Mr. Tester, guilty. Mr. Thune. Mr. Thune, not guilty. Mr. Tillis.
You're one to talk about
Tillis,
guilt.
Not guilty. Mr. Toomey.
You're as guilty as
Toomey,
charged.
Guilty. Mr. Tuberville. Mr. Tuberville, not guilty. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Van Hollen, guilty. Mr. Warner. Mr. Warner, Guilty. Mr. Warnock. Mr. Warnock, guilty. Ms. Warren. Ms. Warren, guilty. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Whitehouse, guilty. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wicker, not guilty. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Wyden, guilty. Mr. Young.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Young, not guilty.
So we got one more Republican than we thought. I used spray on tan 25 years ago, sir. And you're still talking about that? So there you have it. 57 vote guilty.
Unless you had a
10 votes shy. I'm interested to see what other Republican defected. Cassidy from Louisiana was a toss-up. He had voted for the Paul Amendment before the trial got started. Cassidy then voted that it was constitutional to proceed. Yeah, they need 3/4.
The yeas are 57. The nays...
2/3, yeah. Not 3/4, 2/3, yeah.
2/3 of the senators present not having voted guilty. The Senate judges that the respondent, Donald John Trump...
I got really stoned.
...is not guilty as charged in the article of impeachment. Presiding officer directs judgment to be entered in accordance with the judgment of the Senate as follows. The Senate, having tried Donald John Trump, former President of the United States, upon one article of impeachment exhibited against him by the House of Representatives, and 2/3 of the senators present, not having found him guilty of the charge contained therein.
I honest to God think they had a chance.
That they said
I think if this had dragged on until Tuesday or Wednesday of next week,
the charge in said article,
public sentiment would have caught up with it. Because nobody's paying attention to what's going on.
Mr. President.
Majority.
Leahy is already dead. I can't believe they dug him up for this.
And the clerk will report.
Ordered that the Secretary be directed to communicate to the Secretary of State as provided by Rule 23 of the Rules of Procedure and Practice in the Senate when sitting on impeachment trials, and also to the House of Representatives, the judgment of the Senate.
God damn, I was hoping he would have his fucking pension revoked. There is no justice in this fucking world.
The order will be entered. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate,
disgusting,
as a court of impeachment on the article against Donald John Trump, adjourn, sine die.
And without objection, the motion is agreed to. The Senate, sitting as a court of impeachment, stands adjourned, sine die. And could I have order, please?
It's a dark day in America.
The acting sergeant at arms will escort the House managers out of the Senate chamber. And in order.
Okay, Hedbusa. Whisper your link to me. It's possible, but as I brought up earlier, if a new party forms, it's going to be the Never Trumpers leaving the Republican Party.
President.
The Republican Party is now Trump's party.
Mr.
President. Whisper your link to me.
Can we have order?
The Senate is not in order, and the Senate will...
Whisper this new evidence.
President, I ask unanimous consent for a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection, is so ordered.
Whisper that link to me. Come on, let's see it.
Recognition. Senator from New York, Majority Leader.
What's he got to say?
Mr.
Let's
President,
listen to Chucky.
The case of Donald Trump's second impeachment trial was open. Mr. President, can we have order, please?
The senator is right. The Senate is not in order. Senate will be in order. Senate will be
Send me
in
the
order.
fucking link you want me to see.
Please take your conversations off the floor.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator from
President.
New York.
The case of Donald Trump's second impeachment trial was open and shut. President Trump told a lie, a big lie, that the election was stolen and that he was the rightful winner. He laid the groundwork for this big lie in the months before the election. He told the big lie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving this to me. I'm going to hand this over to producer Dave from Echoplex Media. This is the kind of thing that he is going to watch long form and laugh at you. Oh my God.
He watched as the violence unfolded.
This is hilarious.
Was breached, and his own vice president fled for his life.
But this is conspiracy theory territory, and that's their domain over at Echoplex. I do news.
Were up for debate. We saw it, we heard it, we lived it. This was the first.
But I assure you, producer Dave is going to love this.
All senators were not only judges and jurors, but witnesses to the constitutional.
And if you don't already,
the former president inspired, directed, and propelled.
Everyone should follow Echoplex. Act like you know.
Subvert the will of the people and illegally keep that president in power. There is nothing.
Ain't a chance in hell I'm playing this bullshit.
There is nothing.
It's not what I do.
Democracy. There is nothing more insulting to
But that's what Echoplex does, and I'm sure they're going to play it.
To defend our form of government.
They might play it tonight.
This was the most egregious violation of the presidential oath of office, and a textbook example, a classic example.
Of course he was acquitted.
Worthy of the Constitution's most severe remedy.
We knew it was going to happen. The Democrats absolutely
the Senate was subject
fumbled on a golden opportunity.
Incomprehensible defense of the former president.
I truly believe if they had dragged this on into next week, if they had called witnesses.
The former president's counsel treated us to partisan vitriol, false equivalence, and outright falsehood.
He did.
We heard the roundly debunked jurisdictional argument.
And he wasn't even entertaining in his closing statements. He was entertaining as fuck this morning. He was banging on the table. He was yelling at people. Oh my God. Van der Veen was on a roll this morning.
Clause in the Constitution. Essentially, the president's counsel told the Senate that the Constitution was unconstitutional. Thankfully, the Senate took a firm stance.
Pretty much, that's what they said.
Precedent, with a bipartisan vote in favor of our power to try former officials for acts they committed while in office. We heard the preposterous claim that the former president's incitement to violence was protected by the First Amendment. The First Amendment
preposterous.
Protects Americans from jail, not presidents from impeachment. If the president had said during World War II that, quote, Germany should attack the United States on Long Island.
Do I blame them? I mean, ultimately the blame lies with the Republicans, but I really do think if they had drawn it out. My reasoning on this is the Sunday morning talk shows.
President Trump was not directly responsible for the violence at the Capitol. Quote, his words were merely a metaphor.
So everyone in Washington watches the Sunday morning talk shows. It really felt like public opinion was like a tidal wave in favor of finding him guilty. And I think if you had Republicans going on the Sunday morning shows tomorrow and talking about the CNN story, it's all about optics. So now the Sunday morning talk shows tomorrow are going to be about, the acquittal of Trump, blah, blah, blah. It's going to have nothing to do with the CNN story. If they kept the trial going, the Sunday morning shows were going to be about the bombshell CNN story from yesterday. They may have even had Representative Butler on. You may have even got some Republicans to incriminate themselves on the Sunday morning shows. It's impossible that he could have been acquitted because there was no evidence, because we sat here. Most of the people in the chat have been in and out, but I sat here and watched almost every bit of this fucking trial. To say there was no evidence is to act like a fucking moron. There was. Because they were facing pressure from other Republicans. Because the story last night from CNN was other Republicans stepping up and saying, whoa. You guys need to hold him accountable. That's what Representative Butler stepping forward and saying, here's what happened. Trump knew what was going on. I'm not, you want to call in? You want to Discord in? Do you want to have a talk? I will have a conversation with you about the evidence if you will get on voice chat with me. Or call in 917-830-4359. Dude, that's 20 minutes of bullshit. I'm not gonna play the clip. I told you, I'll give it to Echoplex Media, and they are certainly going to play the clip. Because that's the exact kind of bullshit they play on their shows. No, I'm not playing this game with you. Either you hop in the Discord, the link is down in the description. He's got some, curiouser. He's got I made him send it to me in a whisper. It is some conspiracy nonsense. It's exactly what producer Dave is going to fucking eat up. But it's not the kind of shit I play. Media Winch already laid it out. How about since the beginning of summer, he groomed his cult to believe that if he lost, it was already a fraud and we were going to need to fight to stop the steal. There is no fucking way I'm playing your stupid ass video. I'm telling you. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you, but you have to do it in voice. If not, I'm just going to ignore you. And it appears the chat isn't too impressed with your skills right now. And there are several mods in here, so if you don't want to get timed out, I'd up your game a little bit. I agree with Jason the Brig Creed. Don't be a keyboard biatch. Give us a call. I don't have to give you shit. You're on my stream. This isn't a give at all. I do my thing. I'm a dictator on this stream. I'll give you the opportunity to say your piece. I don't know what more you want from me. I'm giving you the ability to spout off your nonsense in my comment section. But I'm telling you, like, if you don't up your game, like, people are gonna get tired of you. Are you gonna call in? Or are you gonna Discord in? Which you like? I don't know your age or your roundabout age. If you're a boomer, you can call in 917-830-4359. If you're one of the Scrappy talked about. Scrappy, that's totally your discretion. That is always your... Now, if you're still watching, you don't have to be timed out. You don't have to be silenced. 917-830-4359. Or you can hop in the Discord. Let me come over here and make sure that I'm not missing out. Discord is open. Do you have the balls? Because it seems like he just wanted to peddle his little conspiracy theory video. Exactly. Scrappy is correct. Is he still in here? Because I'm wide open here. I got the phone lines open. I got the Discord open. I'm actually sitting in the Discord right now. And also, I am stoned as shit. You even encouraged me, whatever I don't remember what his name was. Head Bussa. Oh, Scrappy let you have a timeout. You got anything to say? You got like 1 or 2 messages to get your point across, or you can hop in one of the voice chats. Or I'm going to encourage you. No one's angry. Fuck, dude, do you realize how stoned I am? I can't possibly be angry right now. I have consumed a hell of a lot of marijuana on this very stream. Because we've been going for about 5-6 hours. Somebody give us some entertainment. Oh, we'd love it. Because I was getting ready to sign off the stream. I'll go take a nap or something. But if somebody wants to come in here and get up all of my shit, I want it. I want it. And now look at my eyes. If there's ever a time somebody could take me to school, it's right now. I am so stupid stoned. And people try to troll me. If there's the only way you can troll me, I promise you, I'm King Troll of the internet. The only way you can troll me is to call in here and make a cogent argument. Make me look stupid on my own stream live, where there's nothing I can do about it. I'm probably gonna take a nap. Yes, don't let the streamer bully you. Did he leave? Is he still here, Scrappy? I'm so desperate for entertainment. I don't get enough right-wingers calling in and saying stupid shit. Huh. I really and you guys got to help me. If you find right-wingers that like to argue, send them my way. And help the show get big enough to where we can just have random right-wingers call in. multiple days can live in infamy. It doesn't like, infamy is not specifically referring to attacks by the Japanese. I'm let down. I thought we were going to have a real shit talker in here. And I was so looking forward to it. But no, he's just got to come in here and spam some stupid shit. But he did give me content that Dave is going to love over at Echoplex Media. So I'm certainly going to forward that to them. If you were on Twitch right now, I'm going to send you guys over to the Nihilist. I'll hang out with you guys for a little bit before I go and take a nap. I hope you enjoyed the travesty of justice we just witnessed. And I made it a little less painful. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's alright to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin FREAKIN. We'll see you Monday night on the Troll Patrol. Live.